Welcome everybody to the City Center Committee for February 23rd. First, can I have somebody move? We have Councilor Rollins and Councilor Orlico via Zoom. Sorry, everybody. Sherry Rollins moves the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, first up, we have some delegations and I'll give it up to the clerk.
Sure. If I could also just have a motion for Councilor Orlico to proceed.
Okay, Councilor Orlico, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried.
And just the land water acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah. And sorry, I'd like to acknowledge they were in Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of Anishinaabe, Cree and Innu, and Dakota's people in the national homeland of the Red River Métis, and we get our water from Shoal Lake 40.
Okay. Yes, so we have a few delegations joining us. These persons are speaking in support of the plan approval for 540 Kenison Boulevard. We have Lilith Holder speaking first.
I'm going to give Councilor Rollins the chair.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lilith, delegation to the table.
Sorry, they actually are all joining us over Zoom today, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So first up, we have Lilith Holder. I'll just ask Ms. Holder, you unmute yourself and you'll have up to 5 minutes. And then we have Jeff Topping speaking after that, and then Lori Todd.
Go ahead, Ms. Holder.
Good morning, members of council. Thank you for having us here this morning. I'm joining from Treaty 6 territory, City of Edmonton, and my colleagues are joining from other locations. So they'll have a chance to introduce themselves as well. My name is Lilith Holder, and I'm an urban planner with Arcadis. We are the applicant for McDonald's Corporation for the plan approval file number DASZ 23/2003. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about our site design and the plan approval file we have going. So this file follows an earlier zoning agreement amendment application that was approved in November 2025, as well as the conditional use application, which is currently underway. In general, the gross site area is approximately 8.3 acres, which is the total parcel that includes the grocery store and the entire parking lot. However, the specific lease area for McDonald's Corporation is approximately 0.4 acres, which is the total area, including the drive-through restaurant, the drive-through aisle, as well as the immediate parking around the building. We've had some updates to the plans since you've seen the zoning agreement amendment application go to council. We've had some feedback from the Public Works Department on the future plans to expand Kenaston Boulevard. So what we've done is we received the drawings from the department and overlaid it with our plan and made some changes. This has resulted in the proposed building as well as the drive aisle and the immediate parking around the building shifting slightly to the east to ensure that the future road right-of-way lines as well as the future setback requirements are met. So we've ended up with a total of 412 parking spaces for the site when we did that shift. However, we're still over the required number as there were only 378 parking stalls required for the entire parcel, including the supermarket. In order to accommodate that road expansion change, our team has also added an opaque fence at the northwest corner of the site to prevent headlights shining onto the intersection of Grant and Kenaston. It's about a 4-foot fence, and we've shown this building to the Public Works Department since we've made those changes, and they've provided their internal confirmation that the proposed design is favorable. Further, we wanted to talk about the drive-through and our revisions to the site plan in order to maintain the pedestrian realm of the area, especially along Grant Avenue. So our landscape architects have added additional planting along Grant Avenue to create a more pedestrian-friendly feel right along where the drive-through aisle is in the building. Further, the north facade of the building has been enhanced with collaboration and input from city administration, we've included spandrel windows, signage, facade signage, as well as some pattern design elements along the wall. So we are bringing this file in front of you today, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have about the site design, and so are our colleagues. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this juncture? If not, we'll move on. Mr. Topping, thank you very much, Ms. Holder. Mr. Topping?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here this morning. My name is Jeff Topping. I'm the National Development Director for McDonald's Restaurants of Canada, representing our 41 locations that are currently open in the city of Winnipeg and over 2,000 staff who operate those restaurants since approximately 1970. So a little bit before my time when we first opened in Winnipeg. But today we're excited to, at the prospect of being able to continue to grow in the city of Winnipeg and bring the first of its kind to Canada, a concept that we're calling On the Go, which is the restaurant that we're talking about here this morning. A smaller footprint drive-through restaurant, no dining room, but the ability to deliver and the ability for consumers to use the mobile order and pay format for this restaurant. In this restaurant, this concept, again, as I said, first in Canada, is uniquely designed to fit into urban spaces that are currently being unused, such as this parking field at the corner of Grant and Kenaston, which fits nicely and continues to help improve the density of commercial spaces. This design includes an efficient drive-through, state-of-the-art technology, as well as I mentioned, the ability for delivery to the community. It's an exciting project for us, but one that also brings additional employment to the community, jobs in the form of first-time jobs, as well as managerial jobs overseeing the restaurant, and are strengthening our community presence within Winnipeg. And I just wanted to add that it has been a pleasure working with city staff as we've worked through this unique project. And you heard about the changes in the collaboration that we've made over the course of time. So we're excited to proceed to next steps. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to this project, and happy to answer any questions as they may come up. Thank you very much.
Well, nice meeting you. Are there any questions at this juncture?
No.
Thank you so much for being here today from your locations elsewhere in Canada, and for acknowledging our 41 McDonald's. Thank you. We'll move on.
Our last delegate we have registered is Lori Todd, also joining us over Zoom. Just asking to unmute.
And I'll toss the chair back.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us.
Good morning. Go ahead.
So my name is Lori Todd. So I'm planning consultant at McDonald's, working closely with Lilith and Jeff Topping here. And my role is to help guide how our restaurants fit in the communities and work with the cities one-on-one. So just wanted to introduce myself, and I'm here for support if needed. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your for coming in delegation today. Okay. So I guess we have no other delegates. So we'll move on to regular business. Item number 1 is a semi-annual summary of delegated authority for awards for per capita dedication and community center grants.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried. All right, item number 2 is Communities Fund for Ecole J.B. Mitchell School, Parent Council.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Our third item is per capita grant for Gary. It's for Fort Garry Women's Resource Center.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. And item 4 is a plan approval for 540 Kenaston Boulevard.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried.
Aye.
All right, we will be back for the public hearing portion at 10:30. Oh, wait, sorry, I have a new business. So-
Mr. Chair, so moved for a new business item.
Okay, thank you very much for reminding me
Yeah,
of
no
the new
problem.
business item. So I'd like to move a motion. I have provided that. Sorry, I didn't provide it to you a little bit sooner, so you'd have an opportunity to look at it. But I do appreciate having the ability to put a motion forward. As you know, the Aubrey bus loop, there is talk that transit might not be needing this loop anymore. And of course, in an urban environment, it's very hard to find additional park space. And of course, I am looking for a home for maybe a dog park within Wolseley. So I'd like to kind of go to the community with this, but first I have to make sure that transit no longer needs it. So yeah, so I'm looking at just finding the costs associated with doing that, and if that bus lift is still required. So hopefully you'll support me on that.
So moved.
Okay, great, thank you.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you, Councillor Owens, thank you very much.
All right,
Okay, so
now
we'll be
close
back.
till 10:30.
10:30, yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to the public hearing portion of our meeting, and I will give it on to the clerk to get us started. It's okay.
Goodness. I'm so sorry.
I'll just start. First, we have a rezoning at 545 Telfer Street South.
Presentation for the administration, Madam Chair.
We have to do
do
a
a little script.
script on these docs. Sorry. Do you want me to memorize it? See if I can hear it. Does it come right from memory? I'm just getting it. I believe I have it here. Okay, here we go. Sorry, committee. I'm sure. Okay, in accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedure Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted at that time. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. Item number 1 is the rezoning at 545 Telfer Street South under file DAZ 224/2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is a variance at 545 Telfer Street South under file DAB 251015/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of the item, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. We have no one participating over Zoom, so we can move into a brief overview from our planner.
Thanks, Carly. So this is a rezoning to the C1 Commercial Neighborhood District, which the administration is recommending support of. The property is located on the east side of Telfer Street in the Wolseley neighborhood of the Daniel McIntyre Ward. It is in an established neighborhood, mature community policy area, and it is currently zoned R2 Residential 2-Family District. Historically, the existing building has been used for a variety of commercial uses. The applicant intends to convert the existing building into a casting studio with a cafe added at a later date. The casting studio will be appointment-based, typically serving 1 to 3 clients at a time as an actor, training, and self-tape studio. And as part of the future phase, a small cafe is planned to be added within the building. The administration has recommended approval of the rezoning subject to standard conditions plus a zoning agreement. And the zoning agreement is intended to facilitate a future corner cut intended to widen a portion of the rear lane. As part of the rezoning, there are 2 variances that are required. The first one is for the maintenance of a commercial building to permit no landscaped south side yard abutting an R2 zoning district instead of 10 feet. This is a maintenance variance because the applicant is changing the zoning district to a commercial district, but the existing building has just over a 0-foot front yard or side yard. This is why the the variance is being triggered. And the administration is recommending support of this variance because otherwise the building would have to be significantly altered. And then the second variance is for the establishment of an accessory parking area to permit parking directly off of a lane instead of an aisle or driveway. This variance is required because, they would have to establish a large parking lot in their rear yard if they were not granted this one, and they do not have the room for that in this lot. And parking off parking off of the lane is a common feature in this on this block. That concludes my summary of our recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have just a couple questions. Okay. So just in terms of the parking, is the parking gonna be, because there's a lane, right?
Yeah.
There's a public lane, and then there's the back lane. So is it gonna be off the public, the public lane? I guess you would say east-west lane, or is it gonna be off the north-south lane?
The north-south one, the one that runs parallel to Portage Avenue.
Okay, so, okay. Okay, and there's no problems with that in terms of traffic. I know that we do have some of those. I'm just curious if the traffic's kind of moving down that street. There's no concern.
Yeah, it's a good point. No, the administration doesn't have any concerns. This application would have also been circulated to Public Works, who has the opportunity to have a look at the lane, and they identified the need for the corner cut, but no concerns with the traffic on the lane.
Yeah, it's interesting that because this was a commercial use property many times and it's only now being rezoned. That's interesting.
I suspect it had non-conforming rights previously, and then if it was vacant for more than a year, then the non-conforming rights cease, and this is why they're being required to rezone at this point.
Okay. All right, no other questions? Any other questions? No? Okay.
Okay, I have no one pre-register for this item. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in support of the item 1 and 2 for 545 Telfer Street? So in support.
Just the people that are hoping to have it happen. I think it might be a biased opinion.
Join us. If anyone would like to speak, you're welcome to do so.
You'd speak by the end of the table.
Yeah.
Tell me where to go.
Right here.
Recorded.
Right at the very end there. And I'll just have you fill out a quick form to me after as well. Anyone who would like to speak.
Yeah, just sit down.
Sure.
And then the microphone picks you up when you sit down.
Sure, no problem.
And then
Can do my thing.
we're cool.
Okay.
You'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Lauren Cochran and I live in the Wolseley West End area. I also, as an actor, use the casting studio and it's been very helpful. And my daughter goes to the school down the street. It's a very family friendly business. And so, yeah, that's just my support. I don't know if you have any questions. I guess I have 5 minutes, but don't need it.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming in delegation.
Great. Thank you very much.
And sorry, so Ms. Cochran, and for anyone else who's speaking who hasn't pre-registered, there are just public registration forms. If you could just your contact information would be great. Thank you so much. You don't have to worry about the file number or anything. Thank you. Okay, anyone else who would like to speak in support of this item? Welcome. Anyone in opposition to this item for 545 Telfer Street? And is there anyone who would like to speak for information to the item? No? Okay, so questions of the public service?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Do you want to take the chair?
I sure can if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to move this.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I just gotta get some.
I also have it open if you want.
You?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll take the chair. You can just move it in my intention.
I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
I move that the receipt of the public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
I move.
Motion's carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development or the Executive Policy Committee via the priority rezoning process.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
In terms of supportive reason, ensuring neighborhoods accommodate a range of commercial services and amenities is a priority of council. And so too is the theatrical and growing our movie business. So moved.
Okay, all in favor? And motion is carried.
And I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
Please note that committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
And with respect to the variance, that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read,
All in favor? Motion's carried.
that the receipt of public representations be concluded,
All in favor? Motion's carried.
that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of an adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated by the property by a street or waterway, is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. In terms of supporting reasons, the same as in the rezoning portion.
All in favor? That was pretty impressive, Councillor Rollins. Motion is carried.
I'm practicing breath work for the actors in the room. Let's try it again. I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variance be approved.
All in favor?
And finally, that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded with thanks.
All in favor? And motion is carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Now we're on item number 3, rezoning for 158 Oxford Street.
If I just want to make sure that we have all our folks admitted into the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, do you want a 2-minute to do your paperwork in order?
Sure.
Because you have to get these ones in order from the last hearing.
Yes.
No, they need to fill in their forms though.
Just when
You need to fill in your form. It's right there. Oh, you did. Okay.
Thank
Sorry.
you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm okay.
And then we'll just invite everybody to move up to the front row. I'm kidding. Just move on. I know. We want you in the front row. No, Josh, I was joking. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yes, I believe we have everyone now in the Zoom meeting who is registered to speak. So I can begin by giving the summary again.
I know him. Look, it's former Councillor Fielding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there.
Sorry, thank you, Kimmy. Item number 3 is a rezoning at 158 Oxford Street under file DAZ 227/2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 4 is a variance at 158 Oxford Street under file DAB 260504/2025D. Please note communications were received in opposition to and in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. Again, just the process quickly, the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Then those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. All participants in the Zoom meeting are muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. And we can have a overview from the planner, Madam Chair.
For sure. Yep.
Morning, everyone. This is for 158 Oxford Street. The subject property is located on Oxford Street in the Wellington Crescent neighborhood of the River Heights Fort Garry ward. The site is 7,200 square feet in area and is currently occupied by a single-family home built in 1951. The site is accessed by a paved back lane. Under Complete Communities 2.0, the site is within the Established Neighborhoods Mature Community Policy Area. The applicant seeks to develop a 6-unit residential building, otherwise known as a sixplex. The building is to be approximately 33.5 feet or 3 stories in height. The development would contain 6 parking spaces located at the rear, accessed through the back lane. The development requires a rezoning to RMFS, residential multifamily small, in order to support the proposal. It also requires variances for front yard, density, buffering of parking, and parking stall length requirements, which are detailed in the variance report. The Public Service recommends approval of the rezoning as well as the variances. The proposal meets Complete Communities' vision of established neighborhoods to continue to evolve as complete communities to increase the diversity of housing choices, improve housing affordability, and more efficiently use land, infrastructure, and services. CCDS 2.0 also supports low-rise residential uses on arterial streets where compatible with adjacent land uses and where they can be conveniently served by transit, as well as local community amenities. That's it for my overview, but happy to answer any questions as they come up.
Okay, any questions? Councilor Orlikow?
Can you tell me what's the frontage on this lot?
What the alignment would be?
No, the frontage. It's a 50-foot lot, 32-foot lot on the frontage,
It's a 60-foot lot.
60-foot lot? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions to the planner before we move on? Seeing none? Okay,
Okay, so joining us over Zoom today, we have the applicant with us, Evan Roscoz. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Evan. You can unmute yourself and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
can you hear us? You can unmute yourself, Evan.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. You have up to,
Fantastic.
sorry, is it 5 minutes? Sorry, big chat. Up to 5 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, members of the committee. My name is Evan Roscus of Paris Developments. We are the applicant and builder of 158 Oxford Street. Paris Developments specializes in high-quality homes and small multifamily dwellings within Winnipeg's mature neighborhoods. In River Heights, we have developed a reputation for projects that respect and complement the existing character of the area, and we do bring that same commitment to 158 Oxford Street. We are seeking approval for 6-unit low-rise residential development on a 60-foot by 120-foot corner lot flanking Academy Road. The application includes a rezone to RMFS and 4 variances. Importantly, these variances relate to site configuration and technical requirements, not additional height or expanded massing beyond what the policy contemplates. The first variance relates to front yard alignment. The contextual alignment is approximately 44 feet. Our proposal measures 32.5 feet to the outer edge of the balconies. However, those balconies project 6.5 feet from the main building face. Measured to the primary facade, the front yard is 39 feet, which more accurately reflects how the building will read from the street. And the glass guards and slim top rails further reduce their visual impact. The second variance relates to lot area per dwelling unit. The bylaw requires 1,250 square feet per unit, and we are proposing 1,200 square feet per unit, a modest reduction of 50 square feet per unit, or about 4%. The 4% variation remains consistent with the intent of the bylaw and does not materially change the scale of intensity. The third variance relates to buffering of the parking area. The design provides approximately 8 feet of separation from the adjacent property, along with continuous 6-foot privacy fencing extended approximately 88 feet along that lot line. And the last variance relates to parking stall depth, 21 feet where 23 feet is typically required. These stalls accommodate most Winnipeg vehicles, including full-size trucks, and are accessed from a lightly used public rear lane. None of those variances increase building height or expand the overall building envelope. The building height is 33 feet 8 inches below the 35-foot threshold permitted without variance and is comparable to or lower than existing homes on the block and surrounding blocks. From a policy standpoint, this is a larger than typical River Heights lot situated at the edge of a major corridor. Developments of this nature are regularly built on 6,000 square foot parcels, whereas this site provides 7,200 square feet, offering additional space and flexibility. Adopted city policy supports modest context-sensitive intensification on larger sites that are adjacent to transit services and established amenities. 158 Oxford Street also adds 2 additional units beyond what is permitted as of right. Importantly, the overall building height, footprint, and exterior envelope remain unchanged. The massing you see before you would be materially the same whether the building contained 4 or 6. 6 parking stalls are provided and accessed from the public rear lane. It is important to note that comparable 6-unit developments are regularly approved with 5 stalls, and 158 Oxford Street will provide 6 due to the larger than typical lot width, allowing us to exceed what is commonly delivered. The back lane also serves only 6 other properties, two of which do have front driveways. Given the modest unit count and proximity to transit along Academy, significant traffic impacts are not anticipated. We are pleased to confirm that 7 mature trees will be preserved and protected throughout construction. These retained trees, together with additional landscaping, will enhance the character and overall streetscape presence of 158 Oxford Street upon completion. The existing structure has deteriorated over time. 158 Oxford Street replaces it with a well-designed, well-maintained residential building that strengthens the streetscape while adding modest context-sensitive density. For these reasons, consistent policy alignment, modest technical variances, and a design that respects the surrounding context, we respectfully request your support. Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay, seeing no questions, move on.
Is there anyone else is here that his name has not been called who would like to speak in support of this item, in support of 158 Oxford Street? Okay, we can then move to those in opposition. First registered, we have Tom Ethans, who is joining us over Zoom. Tom, you'd like to go ahead and unmute your microphone? You have up to 5 minutes with the committee.
There.
Oh,
I cannot get my base, I'm sorry, but I would like to speak in opposition to this variance. I feel that the property will not adhere to the look and the nature of the street. We are only right now 8 homes, including 2 homes facing Wellington Crescent. I feel very strongly that putting a 6-plex on that property will really increase the amount of traffic on our block, which is a very small block. Parking will be very difficult for any of my family coming to visit me or my neighbors. We feel that it's going to be very difficult for the people adjacent to the property and behind the property on Cambridge to easily get out of their back lane with the additional 6 vehicles that will be parking in the back. And I think that a 6-plex would just add way too much in terms of the number of people on our small block. A 4-plex would be possible. A 2-plex would be just lovely. But a 6-plex just adds double the number of residents and double the number of vehicles on the street, on the small block. And I just think it's overkill for this property on the corner and would really destroy the look and the nature of the street, of the block, and make it very difficult for us who have been living there. I've lived there since 2000, and we love our little block, and we like the way it is set up now. And to double the number of residents that would be living there is just unacceptable to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Is there any questions? No? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation today.
Okay, next
Thank
up,
you.
Sorry. Next up, we have, sorry, let's see if there's still Mark Newman, who is also joining us via Zoom. We did have Mr. Newman in the Zoom meeting, but appears to be gone now. We can move on and go back to Mr. Newman if he comes back. Okay, we have Barry Silversides registered in person today.
Hello. Hi, she's already been outlined. All right, thank you. You'll be noted. You'll be noted. Thank you.
We have Michelle Richard joining us in person, registered in opposition, followed by Ian Dick as well, joining us in person.
Okay, if they go together? Yeah.
They're one after the other. They both registered, so they'll both have up to 5 minutes if they wish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, committee. I am here on behalf of a number of residents in the community who retained my services as a professional planner to provide my professional lens on this proposed rezoning and associated variances. I just want to say at the onset that, as you know, I'm certainly a proponent of infill development and building vibrant urban communities. However, with this project in particular, my angle that I'd like to express to you, my concerns are really related to three main points. Rezoning is something that's pretty significant. It is essentially contemplating a change in use, contemplating, in most cases, a development that's going to introduce a new use. And this project did not meet the threshold of expectation in terms of community engagement that the City of Winnipeg has put forward. So that's number one. There is limited engagement. Normally, rezoning would require an open house and a engagement report that would provide feedback. My second point is the impact and the incongruency with the surrounding character, which we heard Mr. Ethan speak about. The one thing about Academy Road that's really interesting is it has a history of planning. So there's an existing planning lens that's already in place that many years ago was put in place to help guide change and differences in the community. Well, this property does not fall within that. It is really important to say that there has always been a lens applied to Academy Road to be respectful and mindful of how development would be impacting the existing neighborhood. I agree with the folks that have spoke already that this proposed development is just too big for this lot. It is requiring a series of variances to make it fit, and it does create an imposing mass changing the character, the structure of the community in that street in particular. In addition, material provided as part of the application does really not meet the threshold of what I've seen over the course of my career in terms of requirements for an application. There was no footprint or massing model including impacts on surrounding properties. So the application essentially showed the building but did not provide context. The site plan was not showing it, including adjacencies, and was really not a site plan that I'm used to seeing. An arborist report, although I do recognize that there is an intention already on record to keep the trees, and a shadow study. We did actually do some of the work that was missing, and it is provided in your report. And then lastly, I just want to comment that this is not consistent with the existing regulation to guide growth and change in mature communities. The city just went through this very significant exercise that involved community engagement and deliberation by decision makers such as yourselves and input from professionals. And there was a coming of minds at that the zoning bylaw would be changed to accommodate a certain increase intensity to support infill housing. The cumulative effect of the rezoning and the requested variances represents a level of change that really has not been contemplated and would have been appropriate at that point during that process to consider a higher level of density. The appropriate planning response would be to review and expand the applicable overlay planning framework that's already in place on the street if additional density is desired, rather than permitting piecemeal and ad hoc rezonings. So if this were to move forward, you would have the Academy Road PDO, which is intended, always was, to guide growth and change in areas that there was going to be conflicting land use. And now we would be saying that's more restrictive than what you can do outside the PDO. So the PDO indicates building heights, it indicates different types of design criteria. What we're saying is that would not apply if this project were to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there questions before? Any questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation today. Thank you.
We also have Ian Dick registered as well.
Hi, I'm a planner with Michelle's team.
You have to sit at the table so that Mike can pick you up.
Hi.
Thank you. Everything that Michelle presented, I helped prepare, so I don't want to duplicate our opinion there. It's covered.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have, we have Mr. Mark Newman who joined us in Zoom again, so we can go back to Mr. Newman. Mr. Newman, if you'd like to unmute your mic and start your video, you can go ahead and with the committee, you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm here today to represent the property owner immediately to the east at 71 Cambridge. He's not able to be here because he is traveling. As the committee has heard, the matters before you involve a variety of variances to front yard setback, requirement of square footage per unit, parking variances, both buffering and reduction in length, and ultimately leading to 6 stalls on the lot, together with, of course, a rezoning. The plans reveal an intention to construct a 3-story building with 6 units. We have parking concerns. Many of the occupiers we anticipate will have 2 cars. There are not room for 2 cars per unit. Those cars will end up going to the street, causing further congestion on what is a short street between Academy and Wellington Crescent. Additionally, the height, you've heard it'll be 33 feet 8 inches. I actually believe it goes slightly higher to the peak of the roof. What that's going to do for the property owner to the east at 71 Cambridge is it's going to create a massive wall near to 35 feet in height facing the property to the east. And it is significantly higher. I appreciate that council has gone through a lengthy process over the last many months, and ultimately as part of the Complete Communities Direction Strategy to increase density and to provide for infill development along major traffic arteries and transit adjacent. We do not quarrel with that. We accept that. The difficulty is that that lengthy process, subject to much public input and subject to the input of all council members and planners, resulted in a rule that said 4 units would be permitted. It didn't say 6 units, it said 4. And here we are with a developer immediately seeking an increase of 50% in what is now going to be permitted. In our view, the Direction 1.6 says to take into account the characteristics of the immediately surrounding neighborhood, the building mass, the height, the lot coverage, the setbacks, and all of those requirements. In our opinion, this development does not adequately take those considerations into account. It is an overdevelopment of the site, and it's going to create issues for the neighborhood, and it is out of character for the neighborhood. Consultation was inadequate. Trees will be lost. The footprint of the building will be significant. And accordingly, we urge the committee to reject the request. To be crystal clear, we would not be opposed to a 2-story, 4-unit development, but a 6-unit development of 3 stories at the proposed height, respectfully, is an overdevelopment. Thank you, and I am open to questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I don't see any questions.
Okay. Next up, we have David Johnston, also registered in opposition, to join us in person.
David, welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi there. Okay, my name is David Johnston. I'm here representing Derek and Shirley Barnes, who live at 154 Oxford Street. So they are the property right beside the proposed property, the most impacted. Unfortunately, they are away on a holiday, and because there was no consultation with any of the neighbors, although actually Shirley did reach out because they knew a development company bought it in January and never heard back until just before it had to be posted. So they were away already when they got this proposal. I will also add quickly that in context, Derek and Shirley are my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, but I know the property well because they've been there 29 years, but we lived there for 14 years before them and sold them the property. So I know the neighborhood, and I know the property. And I have to tell you, I'm so disappointed in the planner and in the proposal. It's important to say right away for me that this has nothing to do with density. It's purely about a developer that is trying to maximize profit on a relatively small lot.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, I want everyone to successfully present, but imputing the motives is.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize about that.
It's fair, passions happen.
Yeah.
We'll just
Fair,
direct
yeah.
everything through the chair and.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that off. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
A developer who is trying to develop on a small lot, a massive footprint and overbuild that requires a number of rule changes from this group. It also removes a substantial amount of green space and trees and does nothing positive for the neighborhood or the community at large. There's no win-win here. From a community standpoint, my personal huge issue is this desire to move the building 11 and a half feet closer to Oxford. There are no other properties along any of those residential streets that impose and move forward of that. I think it is a precedent-setting issue that has been could change community and can change the neighborhoods, and it's something that's happened in other mature neighborhoods in other cities and being very bad. I think the other piece that we have to people need to look at. They have 6 parking spots in the back. There's no discussion about what they're going to do when 1,200 square feet of snow fall on it, how they're going to get rid of the snow. There's no place in the lane to put it. What they're going to do with garbage bins and recycling bins on a collection day, it just absolutely doesn't work. For Derek and Shirley, they've been here almost 30 years. Their house orients more to the north side of the property. So they have a small yard in the back and garden and a small deck. So what this building proposes is 34-foot high wall that is approximately 60 feet long. So they would have an 1,800 square foot wall right along their property. They will never see the sun again in this property with that wall and that property there. In addition, because they're long, thin units, all of the light for the units will come from 3 large windows in each space that overlook their property, right into their property. So any privacy, anything that they ever had in the past. And I think it's also fair to say, like virtually every family in the city, the largest part of their investment is in that home. That's their retirement planning and everything else. I got a hold of a real estate developer or salesperson, Chris Pennycook, who does a lot of the thing. His comment to me was their property will drop by at least 15% in value the minute this would get approved, simply because who would move to there if another property is a block away? I think they talk about 2 comparables that are 4 or 5 blocks away in the commercial area of Academy. That's how they've sort of justified the comparable size. They are 60-year-old buildings that, as I say, a long way away. Once you get to Oak Street and beyond Elm, Montrose, Waverly, Oxford, Cambridge, there is no development, anything like this. I think it's also important to say, while Mr. Newman has talked about a 4-plex, on this footprint that encroaches on the city and on the front area towards the street, a 4-plex would also not work on that particular footprint. So it's not mine to say what they should do, but I think really the answer is a duplex or a smaller 4-plex. And that may make it cost prohibitive for the developer, but it has to be something, I believe, that if they're going to develop within the existing rules that are there for properties in that area and that every other property in that area lives to. I guess really the key point that I want to make is that while increasing density, I believe, is critical for mature neighborhoods of our city, and the city has said this, it can't be at the expense of losing the neighborhoods themselves. And I come back to your complete communities direction strategy, which talks about encouraging residential development that positively contributes to neighborhood character while expanding housing options for residents in a manner that is sensitive and complementary to existing developments. In the absence of a secondary plan guiding the local development of an established neighborhood, intensification should be guided by a number of factors to ensure compatible development, including characteristics of the immediately surrounding build, including building mass height and lot coverage, setbacks and layout. Nothing here really meets those requirements other than providing additional density for the sake of density. So that's it.
Perfect timing. There you go.
And I knew it was going to be long. That's why I sped up. So I apologize. Thank you very much.
Okay, just wait. Is there any questions? No. Okay, Sina, you can read that. Thank you.
Okay, next up joining us over Zoom, we have Mr. Scott Fielding. Mr. Fielding, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead with the committee.
Hello. Nice to see you back here.
Unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Cool. First of all, thanks a lot for your time, and I want to thank the council. Sometimes these issues are tough dealing in communities. My name is Scott Fielding, and so we live at 150 Oxford Street, so it's 2 doors down on the same side of where the development is. And we are here to speak, or I am here to speak in opposition to the current development application as it stands. Not opposed to kind of development, I guess, if you will. Just what's being proposed, I think, may be a little bit too big. I think if they scale back the development, they're obviously the right to do a fourplex. It would probably have the support of the community. And I was hoping to make 4 different points that we'd like to speak about. Number one, really truly believe it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood, and I'll get a little bit more into context with that. Number 2, I'm going to speak a little bit about the back lane safety and some parking issues. We use the back lane. That's where the majority of our parking is, although we do have one of the driveways that is in the front. 3 is the consultation that Michelle Richards and others have spoken of, and 4 is really in terms of the trees. So in terms of the first point, the oversized units, again, I think for the most part, we think that the 6 may be a little bit overbuilt for the size of the community. 4 might be a little bit more appropriate. The developer has that right to do that as such. Really do support, development and having affordable housing that comes to the community. But I think this may be a little bit bigger than needs to be. It doesn't go with the character of the homes. Most of the homes on the street are about 100 years old or so. So the development that you're seeing, although very nicely done for the most part, a little bit higher, I think, than we would like, although it does, I think, meet some of the standards, doesn't go necessarily with the character of the homes. And further to what Michelle Richards had spoke of in terms of the planning documents, and what Dave Johnson spoke of as well. There's a lot of developments that are happening a little bit, I guess I would say to the west of the development, but nothing with Osborne. The house, really, there's no multiplexes as mentioned in that area. And if you do look at some of the developments that have happened down Academy, as you can see, most of the development actually faces on Academy. It doesn't face onto the individual street, which this one will do. We do believe the house is a little bit overbuilt. Second of all, really want to talk about the back lane, kind of the safety issues. Safety really is an issue already for Academy, and for the people that are using the back lane, it's a very short and narrow back lane as is. And where the development's happening, it's the last house that's there. Anyone that tries to get onto Academy, probably in the mornings or even around dinner time, when you have bulk of traffic, you're really taking your life before your hands, just because it's very difficult to kind of get onto Academy from there. So I think if you added six more cars, and what's important is they're varying the size of it, right? So it's from, I think you're allowed 23, it'd be reducing to 21. So if you have a snow day, if you have a number of cars that are there, it's going to add, I think, a little bit to the safety concerns that would be there. So that would be the concern. Also having in fact, everyone, I think, goes actually down Cambridge and adds or enters the back lane from Cambridge as opposed to Academy, because it's really hard to do as such. So I think the parking really is an issue for safety that the city should consider. There is also issues with snow clearing as is right now for the city. So I think it's important to consideration. 2 additional points. The consultation, as Michelle Richards had identified, it really doesn't meet the standards for consultation. I know the developer did drop off a brochure to get one in my mailbox, but there wasn't an ability to have a conversation. I know a few of my neighbors had tried to reach out with unavailed to have a conversation with it. So I think that's an important element. It also came up very quickly, although they did meet the standards for it. We're in Winnipeg, so you have a lot of people that go down south, including, the 3 adjacent neighbors were all down south and didn't have an opportunity. Sometimes it's a little bit better to come in person to these types of things. And the final point I'd just like to make is I know the city and Councillor Orlick has really made some strides on the tree canopy that's been so important to River Heights area for so many years. And so there will be some trees that come down from it. With that, those are kind of my comments. We're opposed to it. I think if they reduced it from 6 to 4, which is their right, it would fit a little bit more into the character of the neighborhood. So thank you very much. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Perfect timing. Okay, I don't see any questions for you, but thank you for coming back here and visiting us. So, perfect. All right, moving on.
Okay, we also have William Emer, who's registered in opposition, joining us over Zoom audio. So, Mr. Emer, I've asked you to unmute your the mic on your phone. You could do that, and then you'll have up to 5 minutes with the committee.
Are you there?
Mr. Emer, I believe the phone will prompt you to unmute yourself. Oh, there we go. Hi, can you hear us now?
Am I finally clear?
Yeah, we can hear you. You got 5 minutes to speak.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I would support and second the concerns that have been expressed principally by residents of the immediate area. I would like to take a slightly different holistic approach and go back roughly a century when Academy Road was developed. It was a very progressive, modern style. There was no better illustration of that thought in process when in the 1930s, I believe it was, when the town theater was constructed, which is diagonally opposite the Ash Street property in question today. That building later went through life as a bowling alley. Now, I guess you would call it a concourse.
Sorry, I need to interrupt. I believe the person speaking to the wrong property.
Okay, can you please?
Is for Oxford or for Ash?
William Emer. Mr. Emer is registered for both hearings, so perhaps maybe just.
Okay, Mr. Emer, we're talking about 158 Oxford. Can you make your comments about 158 Oxford Street?
I was starting from the west, but Oxford, everything applies to Oxford in the same way as it would to any other intersection along Academy Road.
Fair enough.
There is a traffic light nearby, but not really in a usable situation. It is between some of the proposals. Traffic loads are heavy on Academy Road. When Academy was first developed for commercial, they were the civic authorities of the day were very progressive. If you have noticed or thought, when you had a commercial property on Academy Road, and virtually all have continued now, that you must leave the side yard undeveloped, which was a progressive thing for its time. I'm just afraid that we would be taking Academy back beyond the wise developers of a century ago. Standards would be declining significantly if we were to see a 34-foot concrete slab put up in place of an otherwise attractive private residence.
Okay, is that all you have for today?
That's my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else here asking me any questions, so thank you very much for presenting today.
That is all I had pre-registered. Is there anyone's name who I have not called who wishes to speak in opposition to this item, to the Oxford Street item in opposition? Anyone for information to 158 Oxford? Yes, for information? You'd like to speak? Okay, sure.
Yeah, come on up. And then we'll have you fill out a form right after. Okay?
They're just by the front there.
Sounds good.
And again, you have 5 minutes in that state presentation.
Okay, hopefully I won't take that long. Thanks, members of council and administration. So I live in the neighborhood and just had a couple of, obviously, orderly development is appropriate, and just want to make sure that process as established by the city was appropriately followed here. So one thing that's, and I'm not totally familiar with your advertising requirements or public notice, but driving by the property this morning, I noticed there was a placard or an opportunity for one on Oxford itself, but not on Academy. I don't know, a corner lot. I don't know if that's a good standard or your standards of Winnipeg. Just something to be aware of as far as was the public notice adequate in this case, or even in compliance with your own requirements. So I guess it's been mentioned a few times that what's really being proposed here is a zoning change, and then on top of that, a variance allowance. So even the new zoning would have required a certain maximum density and going to 6. So I'd echo the comments of previous speakers that it does sound overbuilt. It's not just one step in the direction of increased density, but rather 2 steps. And that's kind of surprising. Or at least it obviously creates a rather large double step in that density direction. There was a comment around in the proposal that I read anyway about sewer impacts and how the proposed increase of 1 unit to 6 would be somehow offset by, I think, permeability increases. That seems kind of odd to me. Insofar as they're laying out a rear laneway of 60 feet wide or for accommodating 6 individual vehicles. So I'm curious if the permeability analysis could be fleshed out, because I do believe there's a provincial licensing standard that requires there not to be an increase. So that's an interesting aspect to this. Beyond that, I'd echo the comments around the safety of turning out off of a laneway onto Academy is a precarious endeavor and something that one should take carefully. And thinking of 6 vehicles all navigating that probably during rush hours as well is surprising. I also found some reference in your snow storage hazard requirements relating to stalls accessed off a lane must be 23 feet for ease of circulation and snow storage. So if that 23 feet is the standard for ease of circulation and snow storage, surely 6 in a row, you would think you'd be even more concerned about snow storage or even more concerned about ease of circulation. So why be in support of shortening that? That's just a comment on that point. So I am curious about the notice, whether adequate notice was given, and I'd largely echo the comments from the other speakers today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other comments, but thank you very much.
Great.
And just a reminder, sorry, if you could fill out the form, it's just on the desk there. Thank you. I just want to make sure. Thank you so much. Okay, is there anyone else whose name I have not called who would like to speak to this item in opposition or for information? Okay, so we can move on to the questions of the public service at this time.
Okay, Councilor, do you have any questions? Sure we do, yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to the for information questions that came up. What is the requirement for posting? I believe it's more than just a front street, it's a side. So just tell me what are the requirements for signage for posting and was it adhered to?
Yeah, so the city requires posters on all right of ways. So in this case, it would be three, one facing Oxford, one facing Academy, and then one on the public lane. As to whether that was adhered to, I could not say, but maybe the applicant can speak to that.
I can maybe just jump in quickly. As part of the reports, files we get from the planning department, from zoning, that included is a confirmation of the posting requirements. We get that sent to us. They go out and take photos, and it's dated and signed, so that confirms that posting requirements have been met. And I have those here in the hard copy files with me.
Thank you. Second question that the applicant or the resident asked about water retention. The outflow from the 1 to 6 units. I know Councillor Mays would be more than happy to talk about this forever. But for our purposes here today, how is that water drainage being, because it is a combined sewer area, how is that, I'm assuming it's not permeable surface. It had to be, they need to do retention bins underneath the building, is that correct?
Yes, and I'll also add the administrative coordinating group report, which mentions the combined sewer district, and the specific wording is in accordance with clause 8 of the Environment Act. Any development on the land cannot result in an increase in flow into the combined sewer. Typically, increases in wastewater discharge may be offset by a reduction in land drainage discharge from the property. So, to my knowledge, that would be part of it, and the actual wastewater discharge would not increase.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one is we now have 6 parking spots right off the lane. We all know how much every councillor loves and all the residents love windrows. How is that being, and so how is that being dealt with, including snow removal / storage?
Yes, so as part of consideration for this property, there was an initial proposal which had a further reduced front yard, and it was noted by myself as well as Public Works, the front yard special yard requirement of 44 feet. We were willing to reduce that to 39 feet at planning, which is consistent with how we've dealt with these type of properties in other places in the city. But in order to support that, there was a reduction to the lane stalls of 2 feet, which would be required. We did support that, and this is typical, again, of a reduction we are willing to support, especially in the city center district, which features some challenges in terms of lot layout. So the 21 feet is a typical reduction that we would support. Obviously, snow storage is a valid concern, so I don't. You want to speak to that as well?
Maybe I'll just add on the snow storage component for the streets bylaw. Property owners are not able to or not allowed to shovel their snow into the street, and so they have to either find adequate space to store it on the site. There's a fairly large set of yards, of course, on this property that they have room for, and if they can't do that, then they're required to get a contract service to store the snow off the site. So it guarantees that there's either space to store it here or that it'd be trucked elsewhere if they're not able to do that.
The last question would be garbage. 6 units would mean 12 different bins, or I guess if you do the apartment size ones, it would be at least 6 larger toters. How is waste removal going to be dealt with?
Yeah, so on the site plan on the northeast corner, there is, I believe, a total of 12 240 liter, which would be the larger, well, not the huge crates that would be required once you get into the larger multifamily, but your typical 240 liter, there'd be 6 garbage and 6 recycling bins, and 8 feet by approximately 21 feet of area to store all those bins.
Well, that'll be attractive. Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
All right. Okay, seeing no other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah. Go ahead.
I was reflecting on the requirements of the CMHC sixplexes that we've got up as approved in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And reflecting on, you know, some of the density. I think this is a 7,000 square foot property. I know it's in the report. It's before me. You know, I've done more density on smaller. But I was reflecting that the requirements of that pre-approved design, it considers a 4,000 square foot. Was it that and precedence? Did that play a role in your report here when you were considering the 8 factors that you do when considering compatibility?
No, the CMHC designs was not part of our review. Having said that, the variance is triggered, was part of that process. We also have the infill guidelines, or the small scale development for infill document, which was referred to, and the majority of policies within that guideline document were met here. So that was part of the review process.
Can you just talk a little bit about the 4 versus the 6? That seems to be kind of the biggest issue. Why allow why allow 6 versus the 4 on this property?
Yeah. So obviously the city approved the zoning bylaw changes last year to allow 4 by right on most 50-foot lots abutting a lane. So part of that is this property is 10 feet and 20 feet wider than what's typical. So there's some square footage there. But the main reason for the city considering the rezoning to RMFS is its location on Academy, which is an arterial road with direct access to commercial amenities further to the west, as well as a short distance from downtown. And also the frequent bus service on Academy. I believe it's the D16, which links directly to some more major transit lines and is part of the city's primary transit network. So Academy Road and the relationship there is the main reason why the rezoning was supported or recommended for support.
Hey,
Can I ask something? Michelle Richards mentioned the Academy overlay, and what, you know, this is what if any thought did you put into that, if any?
Yeah. So
or if you didn't, I'm thinking CMHC, but
sure. Yeah. I mean, this is as she noted as well. This is outside of that PDO area, so that was not considered. But again, I will highlight the infill guidelines document, which this proposal meets the majority of policies there. That was considered as part of the review. So
I'll also maybe just add that typically our thinking with a plan development overlay is that it's a regulatory document that is adopted within the zoning bylaw, and we follow them if they apply to a property. And if they do not apply to a property, then we don't use that document.
even if it's on the corner, because it didn't extend past.
That's right. It doesn't go all the way to Oxford Street, and so it doesn't have any applicability as a schedule of the zoning bylaw. We sort of like, you know, the Malton corridors does not apply everywhere in the city. It applies in certain areas, and so we can use it in those areas only. But I mean, we can't use a plan development overlay that doesn't.
So, except, you know, at this table before, for instance, I've heard arguments about, well, we're going to concentrate on, you know, Sherbrooke and not Maryland for turning on, you know, some intensification on business. And so while I appreciate, you know, you also didn't consider
the Osborne or Gordon overlay, right? Not, it's not there. This is on the corner of Academy, and the PDO, like the reverse is true. And this is maybe more of a comment, Madam Chair, but the reverse is true. That the PDO for Academy anticipates the land use conflicts, residential, commercial more, or, you know, vitality, not necessarily conflictual. And that this area is geographically outside of that. So it's an interesting consideration. One I'm interested in because he'll get an opportunity to respond, the applicant responding, not necessarily for the public service. A few blocks down, boom, you're scoped into the Academy PDO. Not these blocks.
And I know that Councilor Orlikow has a question as well. Councilor Orlikow?
Yeah, so we have two policies going together, maybe the three with the PDO. We have the Housing Accelerator Fund, the fourplex, got that. Which also did not include Academy though as a major corridor street. That's Corden and Grant on those streets. It wasn't Academy. So I think we're using the word what an arterial road is. A little, you know, it's more I'd say nuancedly defined in my opinion. But I heard you say that this is a corridor. I say it's a different corridor than Grant, and it's a different corridor than Corden. Specifically, and which leads me to my other one, the infill guidelines. You said the administration indicated, well, most of the infill guidelines were met. Well, you didn't tell me what ones weren't met. Because I don't recall ever doing the infill guidelines saying, boy, putting a sixplex in off Academy be a great idea. I voted for the infill guidelines. So can you explain to me what the infill guidelines was not met in this particular? I'm not sure how you can say context or gradual scale. But again, please, if you can just tell me some of the areas in the infill guidelines that this application does not adhere to.
You know, I will reverse those comments in a sense. I think I said them out of caution.
Fair enough.
As I pull them up here, I don't think there is blatantly any that don't meet. I will highlight the front yard example, which states the minimum front yard setback may be 5 feet less than the average of existing front yards. So in this case, at 39 feet to the building wall, it is 5 feet less.
Yeah.
If you want to highlight the fact that the patios are slightly larger than what would be permitted, I suppose.
B1?
B1?
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the there's context sensitive stuff where we talk quite a bit about the infill guidelines that we're going from a one unit to a 6 unit. That I don't believe was ever contemplated in infill guidelines that I recall voting for. But maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I guess I would say with the context piece, it is very, what would be the right word? It's good. The opinion on what is contextual has varied and will vary from person to person. But I will highlight the preferred location criteria of the infill guidelines, which this property meets. So in area 1, low-rise multi-unit residential buildings can be located based on the following basis: on sites where the rear yard abuts a lane. This is true.
Yep.
It's located within 400 meters of the primary transit network and where the property abuts an arterial street. So all of those were met, which gave us the ability to support the 6 units. As for context, I guess this area is in a strange location in that it's between Academy Road, PDO. There's a heritage conservation district not far from here to the west, as well as, you know, the Corden Osborne area plan not far, but there is no secondary plan that applies to this area specifically. So it puts it in a bit of a tricky situation where we're back to the Complete Communities 2.0, which in a lot of cases is vague and open to interpretation as to what would fit contextually. So again, it fits the preferred location criteria and meets the guidelines for low rise. So that was part of our consideration.
And that's why I'm glad in the infill guidelines, we had the opportunity to take individual properties and look at them and have council and the area councillor to be able to weigh in to bring in that context. So thank you very much. No more questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. I see no other questions.
Okay, so at this point, we move back to the applicant to speak in rebuttal to comments made. So Evan Roskas, if you would like to join us again via Zoom, you can unmute your mic and turn on your video. You'll have up to 5 minutes with the committee, again, just to speak to anything that you've heard so far, just no new information is permitted.
Just trying to get my video going. Oh, there we go. Okay, question after this, do I get another chance to speak or is this basically it?
This is it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, members of the committee and all the neighbors. I appreciate the comments. I understand something like this can be a little bit difficult in terms of change, particularly in established neighborhoods like River Heights. The question before the committee, maybe not whether the block should remain unchanged. The question is whether this specific proposal on a 60-foot corner lot flanking Academy, 120 feet deep, aligns with adopted policy and represents reasonable context-sensitive development. With respect to precedent, planning precedent is established by adopted zoning policy, not by the absence of potential similar buildings on one side or both sides of the street. This proposal remains below the permitted height and within the building envelope contemplated by zoning. With respect to engagement, we approach this as we did every other application we've ever done, and I've done quite a few with the committee. We distribute our pamphlets to an engagement zone, which we supply to the planners. We leave contact information on said pamphlets. We are contacted by neighbors. Lots of neighbors contact us in regards to questions and materials. We field as many questions as possible. And I fielded quite a few questions from neighbors, primarily the ones in direct vicinity to us that abut our property, such as Shirley, who's just north of us. She's our next door neighbor. She emailed me, I believe, on the 11th. We got back to her on the 16th. Mr. Banfield to the east, he had some concerns and we had a lengthy phone conversation. And nothing was really done differently here versus all of our other engagement processes. It's basically our model and it seems to serve us quite well. It opens up what we're doing to questions from neighbors. If they have questions in terms of, information maybe not provided on the pamphlet, we're there to field those requests. With respect to density, 4 units are permitted on this side on the site as of right today. This proposal adds only 2 additional units, and importantly, the overall building height, massing, footprint, and envelope do not change. The physical form before you would be materially the same, whether the building contained 4 units or 6. On a 7,200 square foot corner lot flanking an arterial corridor, 6 units represents measured and efficient use of land in a location where policy anticipates modest intensification. With respect to parking and traffic, 6 on-site parking stalls are provided, more than is typically approved for comparable 6-unit developments. These stalls are accessed from a lightly used public lane serving only 6 other properties, 2 of which already have front driveways. The incremental impact of 2 additional units is negligible in traffic engineering terms. Again, this is a general 7,200 square foot corner lot flanking Academy, an arterial corridor identified for thoughtful intensification under Complete Communities 2.0. Developments of this nature are regularly accommodated on smaller 6,000 square foot lots. Site coverage is approximately 31%, just under, which remains conservative. The building height is 33 feet 8 inches. I believe Mr. Banfield's representative mentioned the building's quite higher. It is not. The roof trusses are a 410 pitch, and measurements always taken to midpointed truss. So, we're not dealing with, a 2012 roof pitch like we would include on some of our single family offerings in the area, especially north of Academy. So we're well below the 35-foot threshold permitted without variance. 7 mature trees will be preserved and protected throughout construction. Of the trees that we are removing, 3 of which are in incredibly poor health. There's 1 apple tree in the front, and then there's 2 pretty large oak trees that are suffering pretty greatly as per a tree report. Those will come down. The requested variances are technical and minor in effect. They do not increase height, expand building footprint, or materially alter neighborhood character. Planning administration has reviewed the application and supports it. For these reasons, we respectfully submit that this proposal represents modest policy-aligned intensification on a rare corner site adjacent to a major corridor, and we respectfully request your support.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on.
So if there are no further questions of the applicant, then it would be time for motions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, on the, yeah, okay, sorry, I have to put my head over here to read it. The report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Receipt of public notification be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's carried.
Recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service not be concurred in. Yeah, that's it. Supporting reasons why.
Can you just say not be concurred in and forwarded to the standing policy?
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development.
Okay.
Supporting reasons for it. I think my fellow colleagues know how concerned I was about the fourplex and how that's going to work. And right off the gun, sorry, I shouldn't say that word, right off the hop, we have an applicant going in for a sixplex who's indicating that even though every other house in the area, there's nothing this large anywhere near the area, it's a modest increase. That's not. It's going from 1 to 6. That's not modest. I don't know how he continues to talk about that being modest. I think 4 would be a little bit difficult as well, but definitely 6. You're looking at the built form, that it wouldn't change that much. Well, the massing and the actual addition of 2 units does change quite a bit. And that's why you have to look at both contexts, not just the built form, but the impact on the neighborhood. And having 6 plus no visitor spots, you're going to really impact that neighborhood. Regardless of the sun, the neighborhood totally getting blocked out of their sun. The fact that the applicant also never talked to me about it, he may say that's a standard pro forma. Well, I'm going to put you on notice right now. That's not a pro forma that I appreciate in the River Heights Fort Garry ward. I appreciate that you have and I do believe it was mentioned that you should talk to me, but you chose to take your own path and not even hold a public hearing on something that you knew, I believe, was very you should, all developers, not just as developers, should be doing public consultations with the neighborhood. And I do request that we have time to talk about it to make sure that the developments can go through sooner, better. So again, you're right though. It was mentioned before, the city of Winnipeg does not have an obligation for developers to meet with the councillor and or do public hearings, which again, we've had many motions in the past that have failed to change that. I don't see any residents in the area that are supportive of this at all. I see residents in a very short block. Majority of them are out today saying they do not support it. But we did hear some residents say that they could support a fourplex. I do concur with the back lane. It's going to be quite difficult to put 6 cars back there. Getting in and out is going to be difficult. And especially with our Wellington Crescent, it's hard to get onto Wellington Crescent in the summertime. So they're going to have to come out on Academy. This is a problem we're facing as Academy Road continues to build in dense use of already. Regarding the housing requirements of the city of Winnipeg, as we know through our housing HAP reports, multi-units, we have achieved our goals and surpassed them greatly. So I don't think that should be a characterization why we have to support this development because we want to add 2 more. They already have the right for the 4, which they have, again, wasn't that keen on that as well. But again, council's will is supreme and they voted on 4. And then we have precedent setting. Once you do a sixplex already, again, it opens up that door for other developers going to come by and make the development. Well, you have a sixplex over there, so why can't I do a sixplex here? That precedent setting. So for those reasons, I do not support this application.
All in favor?
Can I?
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure, just so that we have the wording clear, that the motion is to not concur and that the application be rejected and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Okay, all right, and motion is carried.
We'll move on to the
public hearing.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
The public hearings with respect to this application be concluded.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion.
Please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Council Orlico, do you want me to do the variance? Or do you want to?
I know I can do it. I got it here. Thanks.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your support on that. Just helping you out. The report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor? Okay, carried.
Receipt of public representations be concluded.
Aye.
Motion's carried.
That in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is not consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. B, does create an adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property in the adjacent area, including the area separated from the property by a street or waterway. C, is not the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect on the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property. And D, is not compatible with the area in which a property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, same as before.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be not concurred in and the variance be rejected.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
That the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service, that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
Please note the committee's decision with respect to this application will be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the rezoning at 160 Ash Street. Could we just take a quick bio break?
Thank you.
So if we can be back. 3 minutes, folks?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are on item number 5, which is rezoning of 160 Ash Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, item number 5 is a rezoning at 160 Ash Street under file DAZ 228/2025. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 6 is a variance at 160 Ash Street under file DAV 253320/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Those registered in opposition are then heard, followed by those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted at that time. Speakers will be permitted 5 minutes for their presentations. No one's joining us over Zoom today, so we'll go to the planner for a brief overview.
Thanks, Carly. This is a rezoning to the RMFS Residential Multifamily Small District, which the administration is recommending approval of. The property is located on the north side of Academy Road in the Wellington Crescent neighborhood of the River Heights Fort Garry ward. It is in an established neighborhood, mature community policy area, and it is currently zoned R1L Residential Single Family Large with a lot area of approximately 9,074 square feet. The applicant intends to construct a 5-unit townhouse style development oriented towards Academy Road and Ash Street. The building would have a 14-foot front yard setback to the Ash Street property. It would have a 24-foot north side yard setback to the abutting residential house. It would have a 6-foot rear yard setback to the rear lane. It would have an 8-foot setback to Academy Road. And it would be 3 stories in height at approximately 30 feet, 3 5/8 of an inch. The proposal meets the preferred location criteria of the infill guidelines, which do support townhouse style development here. As I noted, the administration is recommending approval of the rezoning application, subject to standard conditions and a zoning agreement that would require plan approval. In addition to the rezoning, the proposal requires two variances. The first is a proposed variance of 14, or to enable a front yard of 14 feet instead of 39 feet. The administration has recommended approval of a front yard of 34 feet instead of 39 feet. So this would be a modified variance. The reason for this is that the infill guidelines enable the administration to support plus or minus 5 feet of a front yard alignment. 34 feet is 5 feet less than the alignment of 39 feet. And then the second variance is a rear yard of 6 feet instead of 25 feet, which the administration has recommended approval of. And the support for the rear yard is two parts. The first is that there is a rear lane that forms part of the rear yard, and the rear lane is about 25 feet. Meaning that between the rear lane and the rear yard of 6 feet, there's about 26 feet of separation between the proposed building and the parking areas of the development to the east. And the second factor is that this site is, the policy supports a townhouse style development here. And it is quite difficult to accommodate a townhouse style development here while adhering to all of the required yards, the 25-foot rear yard and the 39-foot front yard. And so the reduced rear yard was seen as a way to ensure that the building had the space to be oriented towards Academy. And the last part is that functionally the building has a 24-foot north side yard to the existing single family dwelling. And that's partly enabled by the reduced yard. So that concludes my summary of the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilor Orlando?
Yeah, so again, I've had this problem with the developments before, just to get my bearing straight, because I used things like rear yard. But the rear yard is not, in your case, even though the house is oriented or the townhouse are oriented towards Academy, the rear yard is actually the back lane, correct?
That's correct. The technical rear yard is the back lane.
Okay, so so presently it's supposed to be 25 feet on the back lane.
That's correct.
And now you're going down to 6. Have the administration, can they inform me of how that's going to work for people who have sight lines trying to enter and get onto Academy with such a small side yard on the rear?
Yes. Public Works reviewed the application and had no concerns with traffic merging. I will note, so it's a 6-foot rear yard and then an 8-foot south side yard to Academy. So there is a significant setback of the building from the Academy Street edge.
Okay. You mentioned so this area is actually in the PDO, which survived the last round. The PDO, how does this comply? Or again, I'm sure you support it, so you'll tell me all the reasons why it does comply. But what are the reasons why it doesn't adhere to the PDO?
This is in area 2 of the PDO, and area 2 only prohibits commercial development. Area 1 includes some design standards in it, but they are exclusive to area 1. They do not apply in area 2. So area 2 is focused on prohibiting commercial development, not on regulating the urban design of structures.
Okay. Let me think. No, that's good for now. I'll probably get back to you later. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions?
Okay. So first we have the applicant joining us in person today, Jeffrey Del Buono.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You have 5 minutes.
Here. Having the microphone. Turn it off. That's better. Just gonna get my presentation loaded up here.
Okay.
full screen. Right. Good morning, council. Thank you for having me. My name is Jeff Delbuano. I represent LCM Design Builders and White Label Homes. I'm also a registered architect and the design lead for this project. We're here today to discuss item 5 and item 6 of the agenda. And I think it's important to note that, you know, a number of documents have been shared with the city of Winnipeg in the past year, which show the appetite and the desire for increased density in the city and mature neighborhoods. We feel that our development and the design of the development addresses this need very well. And we'd like to just demonstrate how the design of our project will benefit the neighborhood and will benefit the people of the neighborhood. So our goal today is really to show that we have designed a townhouse development that is befitting of one of Winnipeg's most successful neighborhoods. I want to try and show that we've taken every step to design a project for the residents of North River Heights, which presents a lateral move in terms of quality and amenities for people who are looking to downsize, while still affording them the ability to stay within the neighborhood. We've respected the historic architectural language of the neighborhood while offering modern amenities and a housing solution that is appropriate for its surrounding context. Finally, my goal is to demonstrate that the variances we are pursuing are there actually for the benefit of the neighboring properties and the citizens of the neighborhood, not simply to try and maximize profits or return on investment. So I want to talk about some of the key zoning and design features. Our property is adjacent to a collector thoroughfare, which supports vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Although the property is addressed to Ash, which is where the front yard is, it has been designed to celebrate its Academy frontage and celebrate the pedestrian nature of the street. All units have dedicated ground level access facing Academy to embrace the pedestrian nature of the corridor. We've located the building as far to the south of the property as possible to mitigate shading on the north neighbors. We've also included a dedicated vehicular lane or driveway to access rear-facing garages to help reduce the parking burden on both the back lane and the adjacent streets. The next slides will further establish how we have considered our neighbors in the design of this project. We are pursuing front yard and rear yard setback reductions, which will facilitate minimizing the impact on our neighboring properties. We have designed the building oriented east-west to allow for the greatest amount of separation between our neighbors. This has allowed us to maintain 42 feet of separation between our building and our neighbor to the north, and 72 feet of separation to our neighbor to the east. The red line on the left of the image demonstrates the minimum requirement for respecting the 45-degree angle requirement for viewing Ash Street. The red line on the right demonstrates that we have gone above and beyond to help the adjacent property in maintaining this. Our building shape and location significantly reduces the effects of shade on our neighbors compared to what would be permitted by right if we followed the mature neighborhood guidelines. Our building shape and location allow for concealed double car garages for each unit, which eliminate any parking burden on the back lane or adjacent streets. The blue box, which you see on the screen now, demonstrates what would be permissible by right if we were to just follow the mature neighborhoods overlay, which would have significantly more adverse effects on our north neighbor. If we follow the bylaws, we would be allowed to build this building to 39 feet in height. Or if you look at the mature neighborhood overlays for a townhouse, potentially 45 feet in height. We have planned to only build our building to just over 30 feet to better fit in with the neighboring houses and reduce the overall impact. We've also designed the ash facing facade with the same materiality and features as the prominent Academy elevation. The architectural language of the building has been rooted in the vernacular that surrounds it. Brick columns anchor arched windows of each unit. Second story balconies, which are semi-recessed, face Academy, and large full height windows take advantage of the south exposure and the views down the street. Units have been designed to provide 21 square feet of living space over 3 levels and up to 4 bedrooms. Everything about them is generously sized. And then furthermore, we have put some sun studies together, which and have been submitted, which help demonstrate that the building shape and the orientation have minimized the effects of the shading on the neighboring properties.
Well, sorry, you're out of time.
That's all right.
Wrap it up.
Yep. I was on my last point there.
Yeah.
I hope that it's clear that by the presentation that we have demonstrated that the variances we are pursuing are for the benefit of the building and the benefit of the neighbors adjacent.
Thank you very much. All right, questions? No, I don't see any questions. All right. Oh, sorry, Councillor Legault, you go ahead.
I know you've told me, I just want to clarify for the public. Each unit's going to have two parking spots in the garage?
That is correct. Each unit has 2 spots, so a total of 10 covered concealed parking spaces.
Okay, and you're not coming off the front lane? Yeah, the front, you're not coming off Ash, you're coming off the back lane?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on.
The next person we have registered is Derek Rolston. Is Derek Rolston joining us today in person? No, in support. Next then we have Scott Stephenson and Stephen Stephenson, both registered in person. Sure. Oh, okay.
You got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just have to find the presentation.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for your help. I put together a slide deck to demonstrate some pictures of the arguments for. Should be one of those 3. No, third one, Steve. Yeah. Okay. Demonstrated? Okay. And expanded. Okay. All right. So thanks for hearing me. My name is Steve Stephenson. I'm in support of this development. I wanted to make 3 points to complement Jeff's support of this project. The building is on the corner, as I said, and facing Academy. And I want to make the arguments that the building is in the same style as similar themes adjacent to this structure, and the use is similar to what is adjacent to this structure. So it does fit into the Academy Village area of Academy. The property setbacks are consistent with other buildings in the Academy, and I also want to address our considerations for the trees and the vegetation. From City of Winnipeg property map, you can see that the green triangle is our property, and the properties directly across it are storefronts, grocery store, flower shop, and directly kitty corner to each of them is the 2 large multifamily dwellings, 1930s townhouse or apartment block, and the uptown lofts similar in the neighborhood. So again, this is another version of it showing that all of the red zone is commercial. We're right across from commercial, and we're right across from multifamily units as well. So it's consistent with Academy Street. Again, the style itself fits within this neighborhood. This is the Google view of the property in question on the corner here. Right across the street is the grocery store, and you can see bits of where right now it's right to the sidewalk with the fence, and where our property proposal is going to improve that neighborhood, and it is right across from condos, apartments, and grocery stores. Again, we have a 4-story or 3.5-story apartment right across the street, right across Academy from us. So precedent has already been set for a multifamily dwelling. And in fact, that was originally built to be like 27 units. So that is consistent with the use of the neighborhood, and it fits stylistically, as Jeff had indicated, that we with consideration for the kind of style that has been built across the street with the lofts and the previous multifamily apartment block. The second part is the variance, and I know that there's some concern about our request for variance. At this end of Academy, there are several cited addresses right on Academy that are similar, and the variance is either sidewalk to back lane or close to. But it is precedent has already been set for that kind of use of the frontage of Academy, and so we're saying that it fits in with this end of Academy Road. And the last point I want to make is the trees and landscaping. There was consideration, a lot of consideration. We've had 3 arborists out to see what kind of trees we could save on this property, and working around the design to save as much as we can. And where we can't save them, we would replace them with natural vegetation. Many of these trees are mature or at their end of life, and several of them are considered diseased or unhealthy, so wouldn't survive the construction regardless. But we're looking at saving as many as we can and then replacing to create a barrier of trees, and saving the ones that we can to accent this property through landscaping. Those are my points.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next, Scott Stephenson.
I need some time.
Just waiting for the first.
Oh, is that right?
I don't want to eat into my time here
No, you won't.
with lack
go.
of technical.
It doesn't
Hope
count.
that it's, so you start.
Well, I was going to say good morning, but it's good afternoon now. So thank you for your time today, council and administration. Appreciate the support and the opportunity to view our submission. My name is Scott Stephenson. I am a developer and co-owner of 160 Ash Street. I've been a developer for over 30 years, just to give you some context on both single family, multifamily, and commercial. And I've had the pleasure of being in front of this committee before. I live in the neighborhood. I live on Waterloo Street, and I have been in the neighborhood and supportive of this neighborhood for over 25 years, both on the north side and on the south side of Academy. Now, how do I flip these? Scroll? Okay, good. Thank you. We have labeled this project and the thoughtful inspiration behind it as 160 Ash, the modern brownstone, inspired by the images that you see in front of you. Single entrance, individual luxury units in a sought-after, established, mature neighborhood. These have been designed for local residents seeking alternative rental living, moving laterally from their current residences in the area, allowing them to stay in the mature neighborhood that they know. As an aside, I have got another multifamily development in my portfolio that we developed in a different situation. What we found was the people that moved there were from the neighborhood, so it was met with some resistance, but we did see lots of moves from people in the area. I just wanted to go through our development timeline just to give some context around it. In December 2024, the property was purchased from a vendor who had previously sought and received favorable response from City Winnipeg Planning on a similar multifamily concept. And March 2025, we engaged City Winnipeg PP&D and started working with the area planner. In May 2025, we had an initial councillor presentation, information session and discussion with the ward councillor, seeking any feedback from Councillor Orlico. And then once we finished that, some of the changes we made to our design, we had a follow-up meeting with ward councillor Orlico with initiating some of the changes that we saw from feedback from consultation and engagement. Throughout March to July, there was some design refinement responding to feedback, including reduced setback, reduced density, and as Jeff and Steve both mentioned, lower building height. May 2025, we commenced in our neighborhood engagement process, going door to door with presentation, seeking feedback into our development. In July 2025, we began the application process in earnest. This is the initial concept that was presented to planning, which included a reduced front yard setback that we've addressed. It had single car garages. The drive-through came through the laneway to Ash Street. The side building elevation to Ash was a stucco wall without an entrance or without some fenestration or windows on that side. The building height we were contemplating was, as Jeff mentioned, between 39 and 45 feet. The side yard requirement on Ash was contemplated to be below the 7 feet, but after discussions with the City of Winnipeg, the desire to maintain that 7 feet, we pushed it back to 8 feet. Density, we had 6 units originally, and then unit width accommodated just single car garages at that time. In that time period, the takeaway was we increased the setback. We put in double car garages, which included an increase in the unit size. So we had to reduce our density down from 6 to 5 because of that increase in the garage size. We deleted the ash vehicular traffic. We improved our ash facing elevation. We went to a flat roof design, and as Jeff had mentioned, reduced it down significantly below that 39-foot requirement. We took into consideration that accommodation on Academy Street. We reduced our density and as I mentioned, that unit width to accommodate that double car garage. So part of our consultation process, initial concept market test with various North River Heights residents. As I mentioned, I live in River Heights. I ride my bike a lot in River Heights. I know a lot of people in River Heights. I spent a lot of time with initial concept. People got sick of me doing the presentation. Follow-up refined market test. We went and met with local commercial tenants and owners and ensured that there was no major objections given its location. Generally, the support was good. We had good feedback on some of the things that we addressed: density, orientation, configuration, design, parking, etc. Directly across the street to the north at 151 Ash, we received support in writing for that owner. 153 Ash, directly across the street, I spent a lot of time with the owner and addressed some of their concerns, in particular the ash facing elevation. 156 Ash was directly north. We received support and submitted support in writing, which is that property directly to the north. 163 Oak Street, directly behind us. There was no opposition, shared some of the concerns regarding the parking. The resident had initiated a conversation around, we don't want 6 stalls parked behind us. We would like to see a single, so we were accommodating that already. And 159 Oak Street, which is directly behind and north of our property, indicated no opposition. So just in summary, we think this project is addressing housing diversity, design focus, prioritizing neighborhood context, location focus, and no burden on existing parking.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your presentation.
Speed speaking. Thank you.
Is there anyone else's name who have not called that wishes to speak in support of this application? In support of 160 Ash Street. We can then move on to those in opposition. I have Kyle Burkett registered in person to speak in opposition.
That's no longer needed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilor.
That's
Thank
okay.
you very much, Chair.
That Councilor really cool piece. We've been up there, not. Thanks.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Kyle Burkett. I'm the resident of 156 Ash. My wife and I, Brittany Burkett, purchased the property and moved in on December the 1st, 2025. We both have lived in Winnipeg all of our lives and lived in the community at least for the last 8 or 9 years. We moved from Waverly Street. We're here to oppose the rezoning and specifically the variance applications. I think that a lot of the detailed concerns have been submitted in writing, but I'd like to just reiterate some of them here for the committee. There are plenty of policies in place about multifamily zoning and what is allowed and what is not. And as soon as those policies are in place, a request for variance application happens. And I think that in talking with a number of people on our street, there's been some frustration about that. Specifically, the reduction in the front yard from 39 feet to 14 feet is very significant. We think it changes the look of the street significantly. We think it changes the look of the block and changes the look of the neighborhood. Also, the backyard reduction from 25 to 6 feet is concerning, not only because of the increased mass of the project based on this, but also because of exiting the lane there. There is significant traffic on Academy, as has been stated, and with all of these multiple now proposed 5 by 2, so 10 cars exiting onto that laneway, that would be a significant increase in traffic right next to our property as well, and make exiting difficult. We think that the sort of creation of such a property as it exists in that setting is not sort of in keeping with the character. It would significantly decrease our privacy as well as the immediate next door neighbors. There are multiple windows proposed facing directly into our backyard. It would also destroy multiple mature trees, which we really appreciate on that property, obviously. In thinking about how it's being proposed with the variance applications compared to some other properties that are similar in the neighborhood, such as 509 Academy, that property, such as those multifamily areas, were able to keep the front yard setback and keep it more in keeping with the neighborhood. Basically, this has an extra unit within the property, and that creates this massive setback in the front yard for variance. We are also, as were the people from the previous session, concerned about snow removal and garbage containers, all off the back lane there. And I think the last thing before my wife has time to speak is just in terms of the support that has been mentioned a couple of times from the property of 156. As stated, we've just moved there as of December the 1st, 2025, so quite recently. The previous property owner who owns that also owned the property of 160 Ash. And so we think that represents a fairly significant conflict of interests. And we just wanted to make sure that that support was not coming from 156 Ash specifically as the current owners. In conclusion, we think that the variance applications significantly change the look and feel of the neighborhood. They negatively impact multiple properties in the area. The parking is not an issue, as we've heard there's covered, but the in and out and traffic increase and garbage would all be a problem. And it would significantly change the sight lines and shading in the area. And so we are not in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions for you, but thank you for coming in presentation. Thank you.
And is Brittany Burkett also joining us today to speak in opposition?
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So as you heard from my husband, I have recently moved into 156 Ash Street and have been met with a bit of a surprise about this rezoning and variance that has been proposed by the builders. So I do also echo concerns, especially from our neighbors on Oxford Street in relation to overdevelopment, in losing the character that is in keeping with the neighborhood, the loss of mature trees, as well as parking and snow clearance being a concern, and really setting a precedence for this variance on the street of Ash. So in reading a little bit about development in mature communities, I did come across the City of Winnipeg development guidelines for mature communities. And I did want to outline and respond to some of the key considerations that are outlined in this document. So number one, what is the predominant build form in terms of building height, setbacks, and lot coverage for lots directly abutting the property, along the street, and throughout the broader neighborhood? So if you look at the 100 block of Ash, as well as looking east and west to Oak and Waterloo, these are all 1 or 2 story single family homes with a very large front yard allotment. And in fact, this is really what drew us to Ash Street. Next, is the proposed development significantly out of scale in relation to abutting properties and other properties close to the property? Yes, so this is a major concern of ours. I do feel that this development would cause visual crowding, obstruction, and would disrupt the character of our beautiful block. Does the proposed development mitigate massing impacts on nearby lower density properties through design considerations such as larger yard setbacks and lower building heights? So I do feel that the opposite is true. So I think that this proposed variance would significantly decrease the front yard from 39 feet to 14 feet and the rear yard from 25 feet to 6 feet. In regards to height, I do think that this 3-story, 5-unit townhouse would be an imposing presence on adjoining properties. Next, does the proposed building consider how its design and orientation impacts nearby properties in terms of shadow, sky views, and privacy impacts on adjacent properties? I know that the developers have spoken to at least the shadowing. Of note, they say this can be particularly of a concern when buildings change the design orientation of the building from the predominant pattern of the street and its immediate neighbors. So definitely, personally, I am concerned about shadowing and the lack of sky views, but I am mostly concerned about privacy. I mean, it's a privilege to live on the street and to be able to afford to live on the street. And we bought it for the reason that it has a wonderful pool. In River Heights, we came from another property in North River Heights. They're usually small, not a lot of pools. We have 2 young boys. We're hoping on hosting all of the wind-ups and the birthday parties in our backyard. And the proposed building does have 5 townhouse units that would be looking directly into my backyard, into my house. And so that is a major concern of mine. And actually, I do appreciate that they did talk about the barrier of trees. And so that is something that I would like to discuss with the developers if this does move forward. I do want to comment though on the list of homes that they had provided that either in support or not opposing the development, because this has been a very interesting way for us to meet all of our neighbors on Oak Street and Ash Street. And I believe that you will see that a lot of these neighbors have now actually sent in written opposition to this building. So I just would like to reflect that. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Next registered in opposition, I have Michelle Richard and Ian Dick registered in person.
Thank you, councillors. I will keep it brief based on the information I'll be sharing is similar to the application for the Oxford Street proposal. The Academy Road has a special place in Winnipeg's planning history. So one of the things I find quite troubling, to be honest with you, is the overlooking of the Academy Road PDO. This property actually fell into the PDO section 1, area 1, and was amended out of area 1 into area 2. So it does have relevance, and I don't think we can overlook that. There is very specific intentions in terms of design standards, design expectations, building heights that applied to this property until recently. Even if it did fall out of it, I still don't think that you can ignore the historical relevance that went into planning the PDO, of which I think Councillor Orlikow was the leader of that. So I just want to say that. In terms of consultation, I don't feel that this meets the threshold put forward by the City of Winnipeg for consultation. This is a rezoning, and as such, it does merit a higher level of intervention and community engagement. Most used would be an open house, but equally so, as part of what the city expects out of that process, is an engagement report. And to the couple that just spoke, the reason that the report is important because it becomes the actual report of fact. So it is abundantly clear that there are people in opposition to this application. It's just not being reflected in the information that's being shared. Again, Academy Road, again, has a very long history of really trying to establish itself as a quality village. Our Winnipeg, the first Our Winnipeg, identified it as a neighborhood mixed-use center, and it had very specific design parameters that would apply to what a village would be. This is going to create injurious impact to the surrounding properties. It's clear based on what we're seeing in terms of the scale of the building, and the information that we did provide gives you an indication of some of those impacts. And then finally, I relate back to my original thought in the previous application, which is why would we be supporting a rezoning, or would you be supporting a rezoning when there is such work and intention that went into reflecting on proper infill and increasing density in mature communities by yourselves, by administration, by the public. I'm a fan of infill development and increasing densities for housing, but it does seem like it is a slippery slope if less than a year later we're going down this road. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I don't see any questions for you.
Thanks, Councillor.
And Ian Dick is also registered in person.
Hi, thank you, councillors. As a planner, I'd like just to echo Michelle's opinions that she just shared, as well as a free advocate for the city of Winnipeg. I have a couple concerns with just the vision, I guess, for the vegetation and tree canopy on this lot. I appreciate that the applicant referenced their plans to preserve some of the tree canopy and that some of the trees needing to be removed might be sickly. I just like that to be reviewed further. And if there are any mature trees such as ash or elm trees that are already endangered by the city of Winnipeg or in the city of Winnipeg, that would be under threat. I think that should be reviewed as well. You can't really replace any of those mature trees with new plantings or shrubs. Once they're gone forever. So just want that to be on record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next registered, also in opposition, we had William Emer. Mr. Emer spoke as well at the previous hearing. He was with us over Zoom, but I do no longer see Mr. Emer in the waiting room of the Zoom meeting. So we can move on then. I have no one else that had pre-registered. Is there anyone else's name I haven't called who would like to speak in opposition to 160 Ash Street? In opposition? Is there anyone who would like to speak for information to 160 Ash Street? So then at this time would be questions of the public service.
Okay. Councilor Orlikow.
Just to clarify, Michelle Richards indicated that there was an amendment to the PDO, which I do recall, and maybe you can just clarify. That amendment was to remove this area from the commercial zone. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify as well, the tree canopy that the arborist report said is that the trees, and I've driven by both this and the other property, they're, as much as I love trees, as we all know, they're pretty rough shape. Is that understandable? That's kind of the right answer there or not?
Yes, that's correct. Appendix C is the arborist report. There are a number of trees that are noted to be in poor health and recommended for removal or pruning.
That's unfortunate. Our tree canopy is getting old. Unfortunately, that's true. But again, I do sympathize with the neighborhood about trying to preserve, especially our oak trees. They take quite a long time to grow. Just another big property we did in another neighborhood that we took away all the trees. That's it was pretty hard for me anytime to cut down a tree, let alone forest. Any other questions? Parking and the snow removal, they would be responsible. This is a little different because it's not right off the back lane. But again, any issues with snow removal, they'd have to either remove it or store it on site. That's correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Was there any discussions with you and the applicant, who I'll talk to later on, about doing 4 units versus 5 units?
In a general sense, yes, that a 4-unit would be permitted here, but there nothing of significance as far as conversation went.
No problem. I'll follow up with the applicant on that. Let's confirm with the present fourplex, it's 39 feet they'd be allowed?
Yes, it would also be a significantly reduced north side yard that they would be allowed.
Okay. So that's one that's significant. Usually my development or my representative model, the neighbor who's adjacent to the development has the largest voice in this one. And so with the fourplex the side yard, if they put a fourplex of that corner, that lot, what would be the side yard towards that neighbor?
Be 10 feet, less than half what they proposed.
So 10 feet with a 39-foot height. That's correct? Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Seeing no more questions?
So at this point, yes, we will now go back to the applicant to speak in rebuttal to comments made. So Jeffrey Del Buono, you're welcome to join us again. And then, again, you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you everyone for their comments. I think in terms of when we were looking at the size of the development. Again, given that we consulted with city officials early on, and they stated very clearly that they would be in support of rezoning to RMFS. It's important to note that we're not seeking any variances to increase density above what's allowable. So lot coverage is pegged at 48%, which is 2% below what's allowable. And just in terms, I think, you know, obviously the neighbor to the north, as Councillor Orlikow stated, has the loudest voice. And although some of the setbacks or the setback reductions we're trying to achieve do seem onerous or do seem like they are fairly large in terms of their ask, again, we hope that we've tried to demonstrate that we have taken the neighbor to the north, their opinion into considerations, or just the welfare of their property into as much consideration as possible. We feel like the front yard, having the building extend into the front yard, provides less of an impact, negative impact on that north property than, say, if we were to develop the property by right and have it as close to the north property line as possible. Obviously, units need windows, and having those things face in all directions is important. We feel like the design of the building, it mitigates the impacts on all of our neighbors as much as we can. Again, we've observed the 45-degree viewing angle to the street and then some. And in terms of the arborist report, in terms of just questioning the types of trees that are coming out, there are no elm or ash trees that are coming out. They are spruce and oak. We are maintaining and will be building around the most prominent and most beautiful tree on the property, given its size and its health. And again, the building itself is set back from Academy by 8 feet, which should provide ample viewing for cars trying to exit and enter the lane and not impacting their view. That's essentially all the comments I have.
Fair enough. Okay.
All right, seeing no other questions, that's it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I do have one question.
Okay.
This is more of I'm going to do this question. Do you have any reservations about having this application come back for design approval by community committee?
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, we felt that we engaged with the city appropriately during the development of the design, and that all those concerns have been heard and met.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Yes, we're going to the rezoning.
Can I just make one point?
Just a second, I don't know if he makes one point though, then are we opening it back?
As long as it's not considered new information.
No, it's just a correction. I had said 39 feet would be the permitted height. It would be 35 feet.
Thank you.
And there's clarification.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay, do you,
ready to go.
okay, go ahead.
That the report of Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's
Aye.
carried.
That a receipt of public invitations be concluded.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
This is where I want to add the design approval comes back to community committee, so help me with the wording. The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in part. Is that correct?
Concurred in with the following amendments.
By amendments, which is to come back for design approval, and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development. Yep. Supporting reasons why. Well, why they really did do it. I know it's a little strange, the style, but it's not that strange in the style where the area is located in the PDO area. There are some larger blocks in that area. This is where that community neighborhood hub that we want in the area, but also taking the context of that. We want to make sure that there is a need for densification. I definitely don't dispute that, but this applicant has really gone out of their way, met with me a few times, and many of the issues I've raised with them, they've addressed, such as having the drive-through, the lane off Academy, off Ash and going right through. That would have caused some very strong problems because they don't have a sidewalk on Ash. Was also another problem. So that they've incorporated, and also the facade facing Ash it was before, as it's mentioned by the applicant, was a bare wall. It did it in keeping with the character of the frontline street. So that they've addressed that. The idea that there's 2 parking spots per each unit is very helpful. I think there is some parking problems, and to have people park on Academy, that's going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. The fact that they have a large buffer between the neighbor's property and including a row of trees that would go down between the neighbor's property and the development, and the support of the neighbor, it's very supportive. I do agree that there is a need for units such as this in the neighborhood for people to live to or retire to from the neighborhood. So I agree with that as well. The design is in keeping with the character. There was consultation as much as they could. I know one applicant said that the consultation wasn't up, but again, it did adhere to our policies. And they have met with me, and they have met with the neighborhood, and they have taught, and I have heard people call me and tell me that they have met with them, either in support or not. So that's, but again, they did reach out. They tried hard on that, so I appreciate the effort they put into that. Streets in poor shape, 2 parking lot, the height, again, if we went with just allowing, which is as of right, I think whatever would go there as of right would not be as good as this. So I'm willing to accept the extra unit, because the 4-story fourplex would be higher. It would be pressing harder against the neighborhood side, and parking would probably right off the lane. Again, something that I think the developer has, or the applicant has addressed, and for those reasons, I'm willing to support this application.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion. Okay, just the last part, Councillor Orlikow.
A public hearing to respect this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's carried.
Please note the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
Okay, now on to the variance.
Okay, the variance, same thing. The report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The receipt of public invitation be concluded.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
That in accordance with subsection 2473, the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. And B, does not create a substantial adverse effect on the main use, safety, convenience of the property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a waterway. C, is a minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect on the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property. And D, is compatible with the area in which property to be affected is situated, supporting reasons same as before.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's carried.
The recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in, and the variance be approved. All right?
I'm not sure if you're amending the front yard variance or not. The administration's.
Oh, as you wrote there with the amendment, as you put in there, yeah.
Okay, sorry, so it's amended.
Like as a correct. Yes.
So, sorry, so there is an amendment that is, sorry, just one more time, what was sorry.
The front yard variance, the administration, the plus or minus 5 feet is what we're bound by, and so we recommended approval of a 34-foot instead of a 39-foot front yard.
Yeah.
The applicant and the seeker of the variance is looking for a 14-foot front yard, which would,
And this
depending on
is
how you.
communicated to the applicant.
Yes, that's right, but depending on how you decide, it will significantly change the structure of the building.
I'm doing it as you wrote here, a front yard of 34 feet instead of 39.
So then, was this communicated to the applicant, or is this an amendment that Council Orlikow is making?
It's not an amendment. The applicant is aware of it, but it.
Sorry, the applicant is not nodding their head. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay, it has to come to the chair and there's, so you have
So
to.
Madam Chair, I'm requiring.
Okay, so we need some clarification. Can I ask the planner to clarify?
Yes, of course. The front yard, so the administration is bound by plus or minus 5 feet to support. And so the administration recommended 34 feet instead of the alignment of 39 feet. The applicant was seeking 14 feet instead of 39 feet.
Yeah, and that's what's in the report though.
In the report, it's 34 feet instead of 39 feet. Whereas the applicant would like a less than that.
14.
Yes, but the variance is going forward, they would be required to do 34 feet. So a much larger front yard.
The 14 feet was what I read here. So am I wrong?
Variance.
This is a front yard of 14 feet.
Variance is a front yard of 14.
That's what they're applying for. I see.
Right, so they applied for a front yard of 14 feet. But if the recommendation of the public service is taken, is concurred in full, then they will be required to have a larger front yard of 34 feet.
Okay, Madam Chair, like this is second report that we've had a strikeout of 14 feet and 34 feet. Can you, like, if the Urban Planning Design Division wants 34 feet instead of 39 feet, can you stop the strikeout portion? Because I read it as 14 feet. And yes, I see the sentence, 34 instead of 39 feet, but this is a change in reporting where it's just scratched out. And that's, in the past, we did not have it this way. We had a front yard of 34 feet is what they're recommending, not, an editorial note. And this is the second time I've been confused. I'm not new at this. I don't have a brain that, can't process or comprehend these documents, but I'm here for a variance and I see 14 feet. So I need that to stop because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the applicant may have also seen that. And so this seems like,
Okay, and Councillor
like that's got to stop.
Orlico, question.
Yeah, I guess my question obviously is, I agree with Councillor Rollins. My assumption was the applicant was aware of this change from their 14, because it's a report that was submitted, it was posted. So now I'm not there in the audience, but Councillor Rollins indicated that the applicant doesn't support that. I'm not sure if they're even aware that that was something that the public service brought forward.
I able to speak?
No, you're not. This is not, no.
We would need you to withdraw the motion for the variance at this point, go in, but if you want to take the time, I'm amenable.
Yeah, I think that, again, let's administration respond first, but I hear you just saying Councillor Rollins.
Good. Just to be clear, so the applicant knows the position of the administration, and the administration conveyed to them that there's two things going on here. So the administration conveyed to the applicant that we can only support plus or minus 5 feet of the front yard alignment. So the applicant knows that. The applicant wanted to go ahead with the 14-foot front yard, which is what they applied for, because that's, to some extent, I would defer to the applicant, but broadly, you probably need that front yard in order to get a townhouse built here based on the lot requirements. So the applicant knows what the administration's recommendation is going to be, but they are still seeking a 14-foot front yard. And so then it's a matter of the committee whether they choose to concur in the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service, which is a much larger front yard than is what the applicant is seeking.
So like, why wouldn't it have this in here that you did not approve this? And then
They
make
wrote it,
them-
they struck it out. I think it's the new way.
I
and
just
it's not good.
Like you gotta tell them you don't approve it and then they modify it so that it comes to us.
They know.
They do.
So the applicant knows the administration's position, and the applicant wants something different. And so it's up to the committee to decide.
Well, we're not aware of that. So again, you're correct. But again, as I read it, I agree that it got changed. I'm going to go to the clerk on this one. Because it's a combined hearing, can we just do the variance? Just redo the variance right now?
Yeah, correct. This is specific to the variance application, so you don't have to go backwards to correct anything from the previous application. This is specific to the variance. Yeah, correct.
But what's really important is that you have a 14 front yard side back so that it all works with the rear yard, which in this case, the variance is also that, but it's, and the public service supported it at 6 feet.
Okay, so I'm going to request the committee, even though I don't want to do this right now because I'm hurting right now a bit, but I would like to reopen the variance for that, at least the applicant and whoever else is here to speak to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that'd be wise.
Okay, so
He's withdrawing his motion.
Okay.
Correct.
So, just making sure the clerk understands us. So if we withdraw the motion, we would allow the opening.
Just for the variance.
just for
right,
the
so
variance.
then the motions you were withdrawing are there will be two then. We have to reverse that the receipt of public representations be concluded. That would be first. You would like to hear back from more representations, correct?
That's correct.
And then, so that one as well as, of course, the one that followed it, the in accordance with subsection for the City of Winnipeg Charter variance, those items as well. So those two motions are rescinded.
Correct.
Okay. So move to rescind, Councillor Orlikow, all in favor?
Right.
Okay, motion is carried.
Okay. So everyone would be afforded the opportunity to speak again then.
We'll start with the.
So can I, Madam Chair, I just, my concern is that the front yard of 14 feet goes with the rear yard of 6 feet. And so I'll want to hear from everyone, obviously, because my inclination is I want to make sure that it's, it's as presented in this design. I don't think you can get a better design than we saw. Anyway, that's my concern. So I want to hear about that. And then I want to fix these reports forever in a motion after the hearing, but that's what I'll want to hear.
Yeah, okay. So any questions to the administration prior to us going back to bring the applicant back? You're clear? Okay, all right, let's move to bring the applicant back.
Okay, so we'll have Delbuono joining us back. We have up to 5 minutes.
Before that starts, just to be clear, is everything I said before still on record, or we're not starting from scratch? So when we started the design of the building, we wanted to look at the site holistically, like what are the boundaries? Yes, it is addressed to Ash, but obviously it has a very prominent facade and just a frontage on Academy. It's very near to large multifamily buildings and commercial developments, and we thought that it made sense for this property to address the immediate urban context that it was in. Yes, we are seeking a 14-foot front yard setback reduction, or sorry, a 20-foot reduction to 14 feet. But again, this was because we looked at the design of the building and the project holistically and how it would address its context and minimize the impact on the neighbors. We feel strongly that if you look at whether or not we build closer to the north property line or closer to the west property line, the way that we've chosen to design the project presents a lot less impact on the neighbors and provides a much more appealing development and a much more appealing kind of inclusion into the neighborhood. we were fully aware that dealing with Dylan, Dylan had quite a bit of back and forth with us throughout this process. We were aware of their stance and that it would be hard for them as an administration to approve this variance, but that we would still be afforded the ability to proceed in applying for this variance, as it really, the design of the building only works with this as part of it. So yes, Dylan's comments are accurate, that we understood his recommendation, but that we would still be afforded the opportunity to proceed as we wished. I think the final point is just that we truly do feel like this is the best design solution for the property and impacts the neighborhood the least in terms of shading and proximity to neighbors' property lines and the privacy of kind of the immediate neighbors.
What's on page 8?
Yes, or 5. I have 5, the recommendation here on 5.
No, what's on page 8?
Page 8.
Page 8 is 14 front yard setback, 24 north side yard setback, 6-inch rear yard setback, 8-inch setback to academy, 3 stories in height. That's the description.
Now, I want to make it just clear for the public that's maybe watching, and that's the documentation that you provide, the presentation you provided was all based on that 14.
Correct.
So the recommendation, if that was the dimensions, would be found on page 8, not page 5.
Right.
Sorry, just a clarification. I did hear you say 6-inch setback and 8-inch setback. That's
6 feet.
6 feet and 8
Yeah,
feet.
sorry. I said it. I thought I said it twice too. My apologies. It was a mistake. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And because we opened up the public hearing, we're going to have to hear from others.
Everybody.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have Scott Stephenson and Stephen Stephenson.
Steve first.
Stephen first.
Thanks for hearing us again. I just wanted to add in support that we started this project. I'm part of the ownership group. We started this project with the theme in mind that this is people that our target audience is people that live in the neighborhood. It's a build and own. And my wife and I, who are recently empty nesters, intended to build one of these so we could live in the neighborhood. So that's part of it. And the original design with the layout of the property, as Jeff had put in the blue box, encroach too much on the neighbors, and this was a design that I could live in and that others that we're seeking to support this would live in as well. So I think as we've said, we've tried to do the best for the neighborhood and a place where we could live.
I think Councillor Leclerc has a question for you. Councillor?
Yeah. So there'll be a follow-up question I'll be having with the administration on how this impacts the front yard setback down the blocks. There's a new style of how we do this. And so, but I'll ask the administration later on for that. The bottom line is, do you want 14 feet? Is there any more you can give on that?
Part of the reason for the 14 feet was to get the units and to allow for double car garages. We believe that the people that would go into these would benefit from double car garages, plus address the parking concerns that we had before. So if we went down further than that, it becomes a really skinny unit and not allow for double car garages. So that was part of the reason why the 14 feet was kind of the minimum we could do.
So I'm gonna also, so you could do, have you ever thought or have you considered, I know we've had these discussions, especially on properties that front busy streets. You ever put any thought into the fact that the sound buffering that occurs by doing this?
Well, we thought that'd be a benefit, yes, that the people behind us would benefit from it. And we had engaged Jeff and his team to do the sun studies, because realizing the sun on a pool is one of their main concerns. And because when we did the sun studies, we showed that it doesn't even affect the pool area, they'll still get suntans, that was a consideration. So we thought in terms it was a benefit and not a distractor from the design.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Scott Stephenson.
Thank you for the opportunity to just allow some clarification. So I'm going to not repeat some of the things my colleague said, just to keep this moving along, considering it's the afternoon. One of the things that we certainly did take into consideration is the integration, the walking friendly on Academy, that side yard requirement, as was shown in a photo. There is currently a 6-foot fence along Academy, not welcoming to the neighborhood, etc. This is one of the reasons why we have pushed this back to allow a walkable area along Academy. That's number one. Number two, as I mentioned, and because this is reopened, this I guess can be considered new information. I have lived one house off Academy and directly on Academy. So knowing Academy is a collector street, a street that does frankly get quite noisy. We legitimately thought, in consultation with now it has been clarified, the then owner of that property, we walked through that to the sound attenuation off Academy, that was taken into consideration. So we thought that this was, because of the commercial aspect of this, sorry, not commercial, I shouldn't use that word, because of the commercial strip on Academy, there was design intent and design purpose to pull that forward a little bit and kind of block the rest of the noise. But taking into consideration that 45-degree angle, which was, of course, from a design perspective, was important. So I appreciate the clarification. That's why I was nodding my head yes and no. This does not work unless the 14-foot setback is taken into consideration. So thank you, Dylan, for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Okay, was there anyone else in support that would like to speak in support of this item? In support for 160 Ash? Okay. Then Kyle and Brittany Burkett, you're welcome to come back to speak in opposition.
Thank you for letting me speak again. One alternative that seems obvious to me, but maybe not to everyone else, is could we have 4 townhouses instead of 5? Because the variance is really our biggest concern. And in speaking with our neighbors, the biggest concern of our neighbors. Now, unfortunately, we don't have those neighbors here today in person, but I believe that there was a lot of letters of opposition that were sent in to this change in rezoning and specifically to the variances. I anticipate that there is a lot of support for multifamily units. The variances are a major concern. So I also am concerned it's going to set a precedent for the homes on the 100 block of Ash Street. As we know, in River Heights, there's a lot of infill homes. Does this now allow developers to build their homes closer to the street? And again, it was really the large lot size that makes this block so desirable. In regards to the noise, I've now lived in this house for 3 months. It is not a concern of mine. I'm not really worried about the buffering. This does not provide me any sort of advantage to have a larger unit that's blocking my view of Academy. So I just want to say, as the owner of 156 Ash Street, that is directly north of this, noise is not a concern of ours. In regards to the suntan, I'm not worried about sun tanning, but I am worried about 5 people watching me suntan. And I think that I will leave it at that. But really, it is the variance that we are most concerned about. And so if there was a possibility to take a 5-unit townhouse down to 4 units, still keep the parking. I do appreciate that they have put some work into this. However, I also do want to note that no one has consulted my husband nor I since moving into this house. And I think, Councillor Orlico, you had said something about the support of the neighbors. That is not us. That was the previous owner who also owned 160 Ash Street. So I think that there was a glaring conflict of interest there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, we're not hearing from Kyle Burkett then is not wishing to speak again.
No,
Okay. Michelle Richard and Ian Dick.
No further comments.
Okay.
Okay, that was all I had. That was all I had. Who had said spoke today?
All right. Back to the variance. Now that we all are.
Well, it's going so well. To the administration, I got a question for them, don't I?
Yeah.
So one concern we have here, I 20 years ago faced the same problem in my own block about these short front yards. I'm off Harrow. No, I mean sort of off Stafford, so it's definitely gets noisy. That's only my opinion though, but I respect the neighbor's opinion as well. How does this now work? If this is approved at the 14 feet, how does that affect the other properties down, Ash?
It will reduce the average front yard. I can't say specifically how much it will be because it's we send out a staff person who measures the front yard of the adjacent properties, and so yes, the required front yard will be less than 39 feet. It will still be quite significant because there are large front yards on this portion of the block, but it will be less than 39 feet.
Okay. Second question then. That is troubling. The front yard setbacks are quite precious to the neighborhood. And, you know, if I could just sort of find a way just to hold it to Academy, and that's why when I always get upset about the fact that you're putting Ash as the address, this is one of the examples why. If it's just Academy as the address, it'd be different. That'd be a side yard, not a front yard setback. Is there any way to do that so the property's address is on Academy? So that would be a side yard, not be considered by the administration their front yard.
Yeah. There's not really a mechanism to require the rest of the block to have. I mean, there's a special yard requirement on Ash Street of 30 feet. However, what we're using there's a few different things going on. I guess what I would say is that we would not necessarily support a townhouse development mid-block on Ash. And if you were going to do a townhouse like this mid-block on Ash, you would probably need that reduced front yard in order to fit it there, right?
I'm not sure if you wouldn't support a sixplex mid-block either, with a closer side yard, front yard.
Yeah.
So I've heard that today that you guys like sixplexes. I know that'll be a battle coming up for the council in the future. Go ahead.
Partly answers the question though is so because we're doing a townhouse development here, we're relying on the infill guidelines in order to guide whether or not we would support the required variances. If somebody were to do a by right fourplex here, they would still be required to meet the special yard, which is different from the front yard alignment. And the special yard on Ash Street is 30 feet. So to some extent, it depends on the type of development that somebody is seeking, but.
Oh, I see what you're getting to. So a fourplex would still have to do the special yard setback of 30 feet, regardless of the average, right? In a townhouse, yes, I don't think a townhouse would work in mid-block. That to me, I don't think would be happening. Okay, that gives me enough assurity for myself. But that's just my comments.
All right. Are you ready to move forward then, Councillor?
No, thank you. With that clarification, I am. I just lost it. Where did I go? There we are. The report would think public service be taken as read.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's carried.
The receipt of public invitations be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Motion's carried.
Now, again, I'm not sure how to do that. I'll have to ask the clerks because the report says 34 feet. So I'm not, but that's not being supported. The other variances are fine.
So if you agree that this application should move forward, but you would like to make amendments, then it would be that it is consistent, does not create. If you would like to move this forward.
And I'm moving it forward with what? The 14 feet or the 34 feet?
I would support the 14 feet, Council Orlico.
Yeah, so that's what we're moving forward with. That's why to be clear. Obviously, I agree with you, Councilor Rollins. It's quite confusing. This would be we're amending the 34 feet by the planner's recommendation to include the applicant's request for 14 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's still as amended.
Yeah, so
Matters worse and more complicated.
So we'll go through the first motion, which is the agreeing that it meets the subsections of the City of Winnipeg Charter and your supporting documents. And then after that is carried, if that is carried, then we would move on to the amendment right after that.
And then clarifying as well, just one more clarification. These variances are appealable by the neighborhood.
That is correct. This is an appealable order.
Not the zoning, just the variances. Okay.
That's the
So
variance.
that's another level of protection. Okay. That according to subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg and the applicable secondary plan. B, does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenity use, safety, convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including areas separated from the property by a street or a waterway. Is the modification of the zoning bylaw it's required to release the inverse effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property. And D, is compatible with the area in which the property is to be effectively situated. Supporting reasons same as before. Right? We're good so far?
Yes.
Yeah. All in favor? Motion's carried.
That the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in part.
Concurred in with the following amendment.
With the following amendment is that a 14-yard setback.
So the committee is approving a front yard of 14 feet.
Setback, yeah.
Okay.
But again, I do want to, because of that, I want to put the supporting reasons there. Again, not do it backwards though. Is that appropriate? I want the record what I just heard today from the administration.
You like to go back and add to support it. So the
supporting reasons as before, plus that the 14-yard setback would not create there is already a 30-foot setback requirement under the, what's it called again? The special
yards.
Special yard beds, so therefore this would not affect another fourplex being pushed up or even a single family house, I gather, to that, it wouldn't affect it. So that's what I'm hearing, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, that's a little more protection for the neighborhood. Yeah, okay, and then back to the recommendation of Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in, and the variance as amended be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
But the public hearings with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Please note that this committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Okay, now we're moving on to item number 7, which is a variance at 130 Sherbrooke Street.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 7 is a variance at 130 Sherbrooke Street under file DAV 233835/2025D. Please note communications were received in support of the matter, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. We have no one joining us over Zoom, so we can move on to the planner for a brief overview, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Harley. This property is located on the west side of Sherbrooke Street between Westminster and Sarah Avenues in the West Broadway neighborhood of the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry ward. It is designated an urban mixed-use corridor under Complete Communities Direction Strategy 2.0. And it is made up of 4 individual lots that have been approved to be consolidated and rezoned to the RMU Residential Mixed Use District as part of a previous subdivision and rezoning that was DAS 34 of 2023. The applicant has proposed a mixed-use development similar to their previous one of 102 dwelling units with 7 individual commercial spaces on the ground floor. The applicant has proposed a total of 18 affordable housing units rather than the originally proposed 38 affordable housing units. There is indoor secure bike parking and a total of 3 car share spaces are proposed. Moving to the variances, the first variance, this relates to the provision of the affordable housing. And so a condition of the previous variance required a total of 38 affordable housing units to be provided. This predated the city's density bonus pilot program. Since then, the density bonus pilot program has been brought into force, and the density bonus pilot program regulates the number of required affordable units if seeking a density variance. The applicant is reducing the number of required affordable units in line with the density bonus program. So 18 units does fully meet all the requirements of the density bonus program. And for this reason, the administration is recommending an amendment to that previous condition. So the previous condition would be deleted and replaced with language that requires 50% of the dwelling units permitted in excess of 1 unit per 360 square feet of lot area to be affordable dwelling units. The second variance is for the establishment of an accessory parking area to permit an aisle width of 18 feet instead of 20 feet. The administration has recommended approval of this. It's a relatively small reduction to the drive aisle width. There's still space for vehicles to travel in both directions and to maneuver into parking spots. That concludes my summary of the proposal. Happy to answer any questions.
The language, the question that I have really isn't necessarily pertaining to this, but it is new language that we haven't seen because it's sort of a choose your own adventure language where, it's this or that. Given the flux that we've been in National Housing Strategy and CMHC, mortgage loans and more, is this something that you, it's really hard on applicants to do affordable housing like this. Is this something that we should contemplate doing as an omnibus motion to avoid folks coming back in? Is this the language you would consider? Because this is applicable to this and other affordable housing projects that need the flexibility given, what folks are seeing out there in terms of oversubscription to the housing program.
Yeah. The way that the program is set up currently is that the base requirement is that 50% in addition to 300 all units in excess of 360 square feet. However, the way that the program runs is that if an applicant finds that they cannot meet that threshold, they can have a conversation with the administration, which typically involves a review of a pro forma to confirm that yes, the program is not functional for this specific application, and then the number of affordable units can be potentially further reduced. But it's up to the administration at that point. This 50% component is designed just to capture, instead of having a prescriptive number, if the number of overall dwelling units in a development were to change, for example, if it were to go down, then the applicant's number of required affordable units would still be consistent with the provisions of the program.
Which program are you talking about though?
The density bonus program, not the MHC.
So I don't want another developer to have to deal with that because the point of the density program was not to delay construction timelines to the point where we're impeding our own affordability program, right? If it's delayed, we're gonna compromise it further. And on this street, where I would put this level of density in anyway, it's annoying to me that it's here. And so is this sufficient flexibility in the applicant? I'll have the same questions for them, but is this sufficient flexibility? Because it is really difficult, for me, certainly for Councillor Gilroy, to see an application where I'd put the density in anyways, and then they're having to come back, do the density program. And then you're saying, which is good language, but I'd rather do that as a separate motion and put that up to council so that you can make reasonable decisions off people, including in particular here. It's a private sector proposal, right? And it's where, frankly, I put density larger than this on the street without a density bonusing program. So it's tying my patience a little, and I'm sounding angrier than I need to at the department right now. It's not that I'm angry at you, but I am frustrated given the same thing with Councillor, I can't speak on Councillor Gilroy, but holy cow, if she got a proposal like this, and then it was subject to the density program in Daniel Mac, if Edie got it in Minarski, this would be absurd, right? So here you're in West Broadway, where we need housing, right? And I know that there were sensitivities in the hearing with respect to this address, but and you've got a private developer. So what are we thinking about this? I sent this one right to our housing, asked the same question. I don't know if I got an answer, to say, is this something we need to do to allow for more flexibility within that program? Because to me, this is now really leaning on a private developer to do affordable, and we're dinging them because this is costing them a lot of time, energy, months of consternation, and in an area that we have no PDO, but we have precedent galore that we have done this without the affordability inclusion.
Also, with respect, the density bonus program is what gave us the ability to reduce the number of units. So I don't know when this number was set, but likely, as you stated before this program was in place, that 38. So the 18 meets the 50% requirement, which to my knowledge came in the last 2 years. So that's the reason we're able to consider 18 now instead of 38.
Yeah, I was able to consider many more without this program, and that it would have already been built by now, which is my point. Yeah. You're able, because we thought this program would work. I said till I was blue in the face, it shouldn't be applied to areas where density would be bonused without emotion, right? And here we are, and this is nothing but a delay on a project that we approved months ago. It's more flexible language, but it's more flexible language that frankly we should be doing at property and development to enable this. So there's some frustration here. Now we'll hear from the applicants, but they've met me before, or the folks working on behalf of the applicant today. But it's with a level of frustration that, number one, it's here again, but number two, it's here in a motion that I think should be applied to all of them, perhaps. And then it's on a street where we have examples like, the Good Building and more that have this level of density. It was approved prior to the density program, but this is where the affordability is actually impeding the multifamily, in my opinion, because they're stuck in an administrative directed by council process that is frustrating, and is not getting these units out the door.
So might need a motion from us up to council.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that you have
I'd make it
freedom to
a,
make those decisions. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe could I just add a couple of responses to the questions there? So I think to the first one, the most direct and short span, we could amend the recommended condition language to say, I'll brainstorm it while the applicant is going, because I don't have the language immediately, but we could put something in the condition that really clearly says 50% or less based on to the satisfaction of the director or something. I have to think it through, but basically it would very clearly broadcast within the condition language that there is the ability to go below 50%, depending on a conversation with administration or something to that effect. To the second point, the density bonus program is set up with this 50% requirement in mind. We can explore amendments to the program, and perhaps a general motion to SPC to explore an amendment to the program to make that doable would suffice there. The third option is, of course, you could, and I don't think this is what you are indicating, but of course, there's always the ability to remove the requirement for affordable housing or to reduce it further as part of the committee's motions today. So if you wanted to take out the affordable housing requirement, or if you wanted to prescribe a much lower number, that's also an option. It wouldn't necessarily meet the density bonus program, but that would be feasible because the committee is the one imposing the condition. And then the fourth component is, of course, just it's a much higher consideration, which is around what are appropriate density levels and not. And our zoning bylaw, of course, has a set of regulations in it, and our policy documents guide us when the administration is able to support increased levels of density. And, as part of the zoning bylaw rewrite, that would be a place to have some consideration around, are our current densities acceptable, or should they be revised to accommodate something more in line with what you're discussing on Sherbrooke.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on.
Okay. We have the applicant, so the applicant Christopher Gibson did register in support, but Chris is not here today. Sorry.
Chris is here.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Presenting on behalf.
Oh, okay, my apologies. So we have Brendan Johnson and Brendan Salico joining us in person. Thank you.
Let's take a second to plug in our presentation.
Sure.
Hey, good morning, councillors, or good afternoon, sorry, councillors, clerks, and administration. My name is Brendan Johnson. I'm a planner at Landmark Planning and Design. I'm joined by my colleague Brendan Salico. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you today regarding a variance for 130 Sherbrooke Street. Yeah, we're here on behalf of Paragon, who is a developer. Affinity Architecture led the design process, and our office led the planning and engagement process for this project. Briefly for the application history, the application to consolidate and rezone this site at 130 Sherbrooke Street was approved to allow for the construction of a mixed-use commercial and residential multifamily development, and that bylaw has since come into effect. So the existing structures on site have been demolished in preparation for construction, which is planned for this spring. And with that application, there is also an associated variance application to permit the proposed number of dwelling units, reduce building setbacks to create a more pedestrian-oriented design, and to utilize Peg City Car Co-op to offset some of the required parking stalls. Just as a reminder of the development concept, it is a 7-story building with 6 commercial units fronting onto Sherbrooke Street. There are 102 dwelling units on floors 2 through 7, and that's a mix of studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. There is a gym for tenants inside of the building, and then surface parking at the rear. And just quickly, this is a site plan showing that the parking is also tucked under a portion of the building. A couple of renderings that I will scroll through quickly just to give you a sense of what is going to be on this site. And then specifically to the topic of today's hearing, when this was presented to council, the developer and project partners intended on accessing CMHC financing to accommodate 38 affordable dwelling units, which became a condition of the approval as introduced by the public service. And since the approval, federal and municipal funding programs that were intended to be used for this project have been exhausted, and there aren't any top-ups planned. This introduced financial uncertainty, and the project partner could no longer continue. And programs that offset reduced revenues from affordable units aren't available to private sector developers, which in this case it is. So the loss of this funding pathway and partnership have resulted in 38 affordable dwelling units not being feasible without compromising quality and long-term sustainability. The proposal instead is that the project can still deliver 18 MHRC affordable units for 20 years, which is a deeper level of affordability than previously proposed and beyond the requirements of MLI Select, which will still be used for insurance coverage. So of these 18 affordable units, 6 would be studio units and 12 would be 1-bedroom units, and rental costs would include all utilities. So this proposed change has no fiscal impact on the building. And then as introduced by the public service to accommodate a structural column in the parking area beneath the building, we are seeking a variance to reduce the drive aisle width to 18 feet, but that is specific only to one location, which I'll show you on this slide. So the majority of the parking area does comply. It's just that one pinch point that requires this variance. There are a number of supportive policies that I'll just summarize as for residential and commercial intensification on urban mixed-use corridors. We did reach out to folks to let them know of this hearing coming up and the proposed changes to the building. So we held 2 stakeholder meetings on February 2nd, which notices went out to everyone who participated in the engagement process previously. And then just in terms of project timeline, we are here at a hearing today. The next steps would be plan approval and then building permits so that construction could begin this spring. And in summary, we think the development, both as approved originally and with the proposed amendment, is well suited to this location for a number of reasons, including providing additional amenities to residents, delivering a deeper level of affordability than previously proposed, and there are a number of supports within this neighborhood as well. Thank you.
Do you have any thoughts on the conversation you heard before?
Yeah. So I think generally when these orders are issued, the more flexible the language, the better. Specifically in the case of affordable housing, we don't control when those programs, when the funding is allotted, when the programs are canceled, and those things do require us to come back to committee. We do understand with the density bonus pilot program that requires that level of affordability be accommodated. Specifically getting into the number of units, the original order requiring 38, that doesn't allow the development team to flex the building as it kind of deals with those changes that are beyond our control.
Yeah. It was in flux when you came before us through the chair.
It was being rolled out as we were approaching the hearing. So when the application was submitted, it wasn't in effect. I believe it came into effect before we were at this table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I remember being concerned about it then. Okay. And so you've read the public service recommendation and that's where we're at.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. That's all there is for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was Brendan Johnson, right? This is Brendan Salico now speaking. Okay, perfect. Oh, okay.
No?
Okay.
Fully support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, so we have Anetta Fruhall, registered in person. Is Anetta here?
Yes, I'm here. Nothing to.
Okay. And then is there anyone else's name I haven't called who's here who would like to speak to the 130 Sherbrooke Street item in support of the item or in opposition to the item or for information? Anyone else speak to 130 Sherbrooke? Okay. Then we'll move on to questions of the public service.
I've got none. Okay. Do you have any?
Could I just raise one point? Sorry. I had a moment just to think through an amendment to the condition if you're looking to create more flexibility within it. And so you could basically take the recommended condition as it's currently worded, but I can send the email to everybody as well, but you could then say, the provision of a minimum of 50%, and then or fewer if deemed necessary by the Director of Planning, Property and Development of the dwelling units. And so it would clearly include within the condition language the ability to further deviate from the standards of the density bonus pilot program if there's an issue with the financing of the project or something to that effect.
Because otherwise they'd have to come back and we know affordability project, like time is of the essence on these large buildings. And so, I'd be amenable to that because at this rate, like it feels like we're cutting into our own affordability, private led affordability, when it has to come back to the committee. There should be that flexibility built in. I'll work with the councillors on a motion to as a preventative tool for other projects. But the allowing the flexibility so it doesn't have to come back to community committee is the point. And it can just be under the delegated authority. I really appreciate that. I mean, you weren't here when Councillor Gilroy and I, got affordable housing regime through council. And it's what a revolution from within it's been, from, fighting with John Kiernan that yes, every housing unit equals a potential.
Yeah.
Or to number one, meet the market, but number two, create affordable units, and that we were indeed creating them, whether we were conscious or not. Now we're way too conscious, potentially, and should just do it as a matter of really good governance. And there's a clarity here, but we're in our own way when we're making a large building like this come back.
Okay, so we'll continue on with the variance then, and then you'll do a motion, maybe Councillor Rowlands at council. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so if you have the language, if you can circulate it, that would be great.
Should pop
I
up
don't
any
have
moment.
it.
It's
There we go.
Carly, I included you on it just for the amended language.
I move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
I move that in accordance with subsection 2473 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variance is consistent with Plan Winnipeg, and any applicable secondary plan does not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including the area separated from the property by a street or waterway, is the minimum modification of the zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effects of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property, and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. In terms of supporting reasons, we're going to fix some of the language to make sure there's flexibility so that the project can get going. It's a multi-family project that we've seen before at committee and have supported through previous supportive reasons, and so moved. And I'll put all those on the record.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
I move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred as amended.
All in favor?
Sorry, before you call the question, I just wanted to maybe read the amendment into the record so it's clear if that's.
Yeah, I was going to do that, but she did. But go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Rowlands, your motion, you're more than welcome to read the wording if you'd like.
The wording is the same with, the same as contained in the report, that it adds the words 50% or fewer if deemed necessary by the Director of Planning, Property and Development. So it delegates it, to the department for that. And then maintains the same language in the next one, or that prior to the issuance of any development permits, assigned affordability monitoring agreement, etc., that a minimum of 50% or fewer if deemed necessary by the Director of Planning, Property and Development of the dwelling units permitted in excess of one. Now, that's the amendment. I'll ask if that's clear, given it's a tiny amendment.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Motion's carried.
I move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded with thanks.
Favor? Motion's carried.
Please note the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Okay, does somebody want to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Motion's carried.
Thanks, John.